Welcome to Chatting with Nuts, episode 102. I am your host, Jimmy Nuts, and it is another wonderful Friday where I get to talk about books, and that's about as good as it gets in life for me. I've been in a great reading mood this whole week, really since I did my last wrap up, and have just been having a great time kind of getting lost in the books. The weather, obviously, it's getting darker earlier. I'm feeling like a hermit just because I'm constantly on my couch reading, which isn't a bad thing. So if you made it through the week and you're watching live or you're watching after the fact, congrats, you made it through another week. And now we get to just do what we love, which is talk about books. And tonight, the episode of Chatting with Nuts, obviously there is no guest other than you in the chat or in the comments, but it is going to be a themed episode, which you're going to see a little bit more of these coming out. And this one is, we're going to start out easy and we're going to go with a top 10 trilogies list. I have never done any top 10s outside of end of the year books. Those are my favorite videos to make at the end of the year, or lives, or whatever I do now. They're always a bit difficult, and I stress about them probably more than I should about the ordering and, how do I justify where I put things. So when I made this channel, I did have a mission of trying to find the next A Song of Ice and Fire. That was a huge piece of it, but also, to be honest, I really just wanted to rank books. It looks fun when you watch other people do it, and I've stayed away from it because I wanted to read more, and I wanted to have a bigger sample size of things to pick from, and try to find maybe some little lesser known stuff. I don't necessarily know if the trilogies list that I'm doing tonight is going to be the most shocking or surprising. I think a lot of people who have watched the channel for a long time are probably going to be more interested in how I order these things rather than what's on the list. But I think whenever we get into like favorite books or lesser known books, I think those lists will be a lot of fun. Don't worry, I'm not going to destroy you with top 10 after top 10 list. That's not what I intend to do. But I mean, I can't think of many things more fun to me in this hobby than sitting down and forcing myself to rank these books. Because as everyone knows, over the many, many years I've been doing this now, I'm constantly saying that might break into my top 10 this or that list. And I've gotten around it because I've never actually put one out. So now I actually have to, put my books where my mouth is, I guess, or my list where my mouth is. So I wanted to say thanks to everyone who's showing up live. If you're watching after the fact, you don't feel like hearing me interact with the live chat, or you don't want to hear me bumble intros and outros and in-betweens and transitions, there are going to be timestamps down below numbered for each book that I talk about, 10 through 1. That you can just jump into just the book talk, because after each book, I'll probably end up seeing what the chat has to say. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to get here in the chat and say hello to some wonderful people that have decided to spend their Friday night with me, which I feel so gracious for, or I should say grateful for. It's been a long week. But once I do a little intro here to the chat, we will jump right in, because knowing me and how long I talk, this could take a while. Oh, man. Good to see you, Beps, the bookworm. Great to see you. What ho? I will read Kings of the Wild until the live. What are you guys reading? That's always the best question to ask. Feel free to drop what you're reading in the comments below for sure. Oh, Contact, the book. I've never read the book, but I love the movie. I've heard that the book is decent. I've heard a lot of people tell me that the movie does just good enough that you don't necessarily have to read. I know that's heresy, but it's what I hear. So Glitch says, this is the most important list of files that have dropped this week easily. Oh my God. I walked right into that, didn't I? Paloma, you're reading King Sorrow by Joe Hill. I'm very interested in that book. I picked it up, and it'll be probably my first or second Joe Hill. I'm probably going to read Horns because my friend Amanda really liked it. And, or is it Antlers? Is it Horn? I think it's Horns. I want to read that one first before King Sorrow, maybe, because she really, really liked it. And I've always wanted to watch the movie too with Daniel Radcliffe. What's up, Fantasy Babble? Good to see you. Oh, Amanda's here. Hello, Amanda. She said she just finished Strength of the Few, banger. I'm about, I don't know, 150 pages in, and I am enjoying it way more than book one. And I feel like he really carried a lot of momentum from the ending of book one, which is the only reason why I read book two. I was super mid on book one until the ending. I loved what he did. James Islington's kind of a crazy man. And so far, really, really, really enjoying it. So I'm glad to hear that it went well for you. Zeely, Annette, Cy, all the good people here. A random person just super chatted $20. That's... I'm always taken back by people's generosity. You guys don't have to super chat or do anything like that. This channel's not going to ever be something that's, you know, I'm never going to get to like 100,000 or a million subscribers. I really do this for the love of the game at this point. But when people are generous like this, it always takes me back. So thank you, first off. And then super chat reads, happy early birthday from an anonymous Kingsguard member to be used towards a trade paperback of your choice or Lost Season 1 on Blu-ray. Okay, I know exactly who this is. I will, before the end of 2025, attempt to watch the first like 10 episodes of Lost. Or at least however many episodes are in season 1 that you say I can watch until I give up on it. That is my pledge to you. Thank you, random person who I know. It's very kind of you. What's up, Reader's Journey? What's up, Evie? Good to see you. Nemos is here. My dude. K Fox has said, I'm so honored to be a guest on CWM. Kim, always. You're always the best guest. KES, I don't know if I've seen this name. Yeah, it's my first time here. Well, welcome. I'm super glad to have you. We definitely have had more people like tuning in, and I don't know if that's just because we hit episode 100 and people are like, well, I guess I should finally figure out what this thing's about or what's happening, but I'm glad that people are showing up and that they're here. And I'm glad it's that you're here for your first time. There's been people who've been watching this show for like years and have never actually been to this live. Like they're just not able to because of time zones or commitments or time. I mean, the fact I ask people to watch 2 hours of me every other week is pretty obnoxious of me. So I'm always happy when people get to show up live. Everyone make sure to welcome all the new people in the chat. We're always friendly here. DK Moon said, doesn't Jimmy just read the first book of a series, not trilogy? So I'm going to tell you this now. I sat down to compile this list last night because I'm procrastinating and I'm a bit swamped right now in other parts of life and work. But I have to tell y'all, I did not realize how many books I DNF on book 2. It's quite a lot. But I'll tell you this, there was only one series on that list that I DNF'd on book 2 that I was like, maybe I should try that again. Almost every one of them, I was like, thank God I DNF'd that. So that happens a lot. And then number 2 is, I think I've read a lot more 4-book series than I have trilogies possibly. If you remove Robin Hobb from the equation, of course, because she just writes trilogies out the wazoo, obviously. But so many 4-book series or trilogies that turned into 4-book series. I'm looking at you, Tad. I'm looking at you, Steven Erickson, the Witness trilogy being 4 books. I was so excited to put it on the list. I couldn't because it's not a trilogy yet. But anyways, he's going to make it 4 books. So, and before I begin, I am going to give a little disclaimer. There's a series that's not on the list, and I have a good reason why, because it would probably be a top 5er. But I decided to leave it off, and I think I have decent justification for it, but I still want to give it some praise. I'm not doing an honorable mention, but it's specifically this one series that I was kind of hesitant to put on the list because of the circumstances around it, and I kind of want to see what people think in the chat maybe before we get to that. So people are saying that they absolutely love top 10s, which is great. Game of Thrones honorable mention, we all unsubscribed. No. Trust me, if Game of Thrones, if Song of Ice and Fire was a trilogy, it would be easily on there. And I do not count the Dunk and Egg novellas as a trilogy, personally. So Mrs. Nuts is here. We want to give a big shout out to her. She made all the graphics that you're going to see tonight, and I really kind of put her in a bind and made it at the last minute. So shout out to her for being very flexible. Needed it. Monica wants to know how the new job is. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And just trying to get caught up and yeah. So, hello, Mindolin. Good to see you. Good to see you, Kev. Thanks for taking a break from Call of Duty to come say hi. I appreciate that. Nothing better than books and lists and both of them together. I kind of agree, actually. Good to see you, Noel. Locked Lamora. This is possibly maybe one of the ones I'm going to be talking about in just a second. K Fox said it's heresy that I said Contact the movie might be better than the book. To be fair, I'm an idiot. I haven't read the book, so I shouldn't make those statements, but it's my stream, so I can do whatever I want. Remus said, good evening, Jimmy and company. Hope everyone's night is going well. Reading To Hell's Chasm by Ginny Wertz right now. I was just looking at that book the other day on my shelf. DK Moon liked Contact book and movie, which is great. And Nemos is reading The Rosefield by Philip Pullman. There's a trilogy, by the way, his Dark Materials. That's one I was like, man, I didn't DNF it. I just haven't continued it. And I'm like, I really should have continued that by now. Will I? I don't know. I mean, I will continue it at some point. I just don't know when. Okay, Paloma said King Sorrow is really good so far. Joelle's reading Black Tongue Thief. It's fantastic. Dawn by the Queen Octavia Butler. I love to hear that. Royal Assassin, Reader's Journey. That's one of my favorite sequels. Possibly, maybe a trilogy that shows up in the list tonight. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. Oh, Fantasy Fanatics. I'm reading Mort by Terry Pratchett. I have 100 pages left, and I'll admit I'm not vibing with it much, unfortunately. Well, the good news is, I don't know if this is your first Pratchett, but the good news is you can kind of jump around in Discworld, and if the death books aren't for you, you can probably find one that is, which is kind of the joy of Discworld in a lot of ways. Unless if you hate his writing. I know people who hate his writing, and then, well, you're kind of out of luck, unfortunately. So I hope that it works out, or your next read is really good for you. It's good to see everyone. DK is on Lycanius book 3. I DNF'd that book at like 80% and do not regret it. I'm not going to lie. But I hope you like it. Let's go rewatch Lost coming up. I've never even watched it. Simon Dinosaur, thank you for the 10 spots. Very generous. Said, we love the game and you too, Jimmy. Well, I love you as well. And I have a lot of love for anybody that shows up still after all these years to hear me talk about books. I promise I'm not going to go on too much longer until we get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. But Lost Beyond the Wall, David said, wow, much more than the random person was bargaining for. Well, you got what you got a nice reward. It was very kind of you. Reader's Journey says, Lost is pure storytelling, gets weird as hell. Probably my favorite show of all time. I do enjoy weirdness, and I do enjoy the show From, which is from the creators of Lost. Though I do think From is not a very good TV show. Like, I don't think it's actually very good, but the premise, the mystery, the vibes all carry it through. Maybe at the end I'll kind of talk about what I'm watching. I've been watching a lot of stuff lately, which would be cool. Oh, Noelle said they're not a person that can go through a series straight through. I used to be, and I still do it when the mood strikes me. Like, I've been making my pretty good clip through the Final Architecture, which I really wanted to finish before I made this list, because I do think the Final Architecture has a chance to be in my top 10 trilogies. But I don't know. I kind of wanted to do this. There's not much of a reason, but one of my things I love reading this time of year is a trilogy. And I started thinking about trilogies, and I was like, let's do a top 10. That would be hard. And it was. Mitch said, hello, I'm the gatekeeper around here. Consider yourselves gatekept. Blood in, blood out. The fantasy nut, Chatting with Nuts team. The name that shall not be spoken ever again. What's up, Oso? Good to see you, bud. How's that golf game? Well, Andy Plies, I think you know that I'm hitting dingers. Bass Lag isn't a trilogy. Changed my mind. I hope to tonight. What are you drinking, Jimmy? Blue Moon. Blue Moon out of my Game of Thrones glass that I previously chilled. And to be honest with you, it's quite nice. Brendan Park said, Dune Missile Children, Dune number one flexible indeed, Jimmy. I love it. Oso's reading Berserk. It's tough. It's never easy. Never easy. Matt from Bend the Knee, my co-host from Bend the Knee, I told him the other day he needs to read Fever Dream because he tuned into the chat I did with Joanna, Kyle, and Alan the other night over on Kyle's channel, read by Kyle. And he's like, yeah, the other George novels sound good. I'm like, you should do Fever Dream. And he got the audiobook, and it sounds like he's halfway through. And it's my favorite vampire story, I think. I'm pretty sure. 30 Days of Night's also up there. I really like that. No Life Forsaken, what we saying? I have positive things to say. Maybe a couple drawbacks, but overall, a great Malazan book, in my opinion. I'll talk about it on my wrap-up for sure. I did finish it. Next check wants to be a revised top 10 trilogies with Final Architecture included. I may make an amendment. Had a Blue Moon for the first time a few weeks ago. Not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. And when it's good, it's really good. But overall, I don't think I've ever had a bad Blue Moon. Matt says Fever Dream is peak. Dude, this makes me so happy. Matt, when you finish Fever Dream, we should talk about it on the podcast, but then we should also get you to read Sand Kings, because that is just an absolute slammer. And I'm almost always drinking Blue Moon when I'm watching. That's fun. That's the official drink sponsor of Chatting with Nuts. 3-day weekends are my favorite trilogies. Am I right? Tips your servers, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Brian Bell, over there on BellTube. Just celebrated a little anniversary. Was not able to make his stream, but y'all should go check it out. And of course, I always endorse people supporting good old BellTube. So let's talk about this list, and I'll get into the series I left off, why, and then we'll jump into it with a little disclaimer prior. So I left off The Lies of Locke Lamora, Gentlemen Bastards by Scott Lynch. And the reason is yes, there are 3 books. And yes, there has not been a book published in a long time. But I don't think it's really intended to be a trilogy. And I also, and maybe I'm gullible, but I think out of all the long-standing waiting for releases that we have, I think Scott Lynch is probably the most obvious one that will happen. I actually have quite a bit of faith that we'll see some form of Winds of Winter as well. I don't know if it'll be the complete version or they'll release whatever he has at some point, whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're not talking about that right now, but I really think that Gentlemen Bastards, we will see book 4 sooner rather than later. Thorn of Emberlane, is that the title of it, I think? I am very, very confident that we'll see that. Maybe I'm dumb, but I left it off for that. It would have been a top 5 trilogy, but I just don't think that story is even close to being done. And, you know, if he ends up releasing the 4th book, I look like an idiot. Now, there are 2 series that are ongoing that I'm going to mention after number 1. One probably is going to make the top 10. It's kind of a stretch. I just have a feeling. And then there's another one that, honest to God, will definitely be top 3 and could be number 1. I'm just waiting on it to finish, and I've been waiting on the 3rd book for a minute now. So I'll talk about those after number 1. So there's a little surprise for you. So we're going to get into it. We're going to start with book number 10. Sorry, trilogy number 10. What I want to get out in front of is that this is in no way at all an objective list. It is so subjective that it hurts. It's just me. It's just my favorites. It's not the best of all time. It's just me. It's my personal favorites so far that I've read in this moment directly right now. I might change my mind later. Maybe things will slide in, things will slide out. Who knows? Giggity. But I do think that there is some worth to this if you've watched the channel for any period of time, or if it's your first time watching me. I think that you'll be able to kind of maybe gather what my tastes are. And if you disagree with something I've put on the list, you don't like the place that it's in, or the fact that it's on there, it's not on there, whatever, I encourage you, just make your own. Like, it's a lot of fun, actually. And then touch grass. Like, I think we could all touch grass more, myself included. This is not intended to be like a huge debate or anything like this. This is just kind of me looking back over the last few years and trying to figure out, you know, where would I rank things if I had to? And I intend for this to be very fun, but in no manner is any of this of any real value or objectivity. So let's have fun. And just know I stressed over this list all night and day, and I've switched it a couple times, but I think this is about as ironclad as it could be. And a couple things could probably slide in and out of whatever. Enough. Shall we start? Let's start. I'm just making sure I don't have any good chat here. Oh, who guy that? What's up, chat? What's up, Jimmy? I'll be listening to while I work at my custodian job till 11. Love the channel. I'm glad you could join us, and I hope that work goes by quick. Cheers to you on a Friday night. People are already trying of guessing which series is number 1. This will be great. I hate grass, Jimmy. I'm sorry to hear that. Grass is for cows. I'm a cow. When I disagree with your list, I will certainly throw a fit and call out your ignorance. I would encourage this, actually. All right, number 10. The Millennium Trilogy by Stieg Larsson. I wrestled with this one, figuratively and literally, because I used to be a wrestler. Wow. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I think, made my top 5 books of the year in 2023. And if you're not aware, this is a crime thriller, and it centers around Lisbeth Salador, I think was her last name, but Lisbeth, who's kind of like a goth alternative chick who sees the world very differently than almost everyone around her, and is done so well to see her like rational thinking through the mystery or the crime that we're tackling, along with her older male partner, is really fascinating because they're 2 completely different people. They should never really be working together in the first place, but lo and behold, here we are. She goes through some extremely graphic things in the book but really just a memorable character and one that I've thought about a lot since this trilogy. Obviously, this has become a movie. There are sequels that were not written by Stieg Larsson. He passed away. I've heard the trash. I'm not going to read them. But the movie everyone really enjoys. I still have not watched it because I never watch any adaptation I say I'm going to watch because I suck. But this is really centered around a like decades long like family mystery that needs to be solved in this crime. And I think that the twists and the turns is so interesting. And also kind of the turn of the century, like really getting tech into solving crimes, right? Solving this mystery. And sure, now that's commonplace, but at the turn of the century, not so much. And it's kind of cool to see an author dabbling with that and being like, what's this genre look like with more tech involved? I've actually heard, I think it was Carlos from StoryTube one time said that there was an author that mentioned how hard it is to write like thrillers now or mysteries because of cell phones. And I always think of this book as like a really good example of how to integrate technology, even if it is at this point kind of old technology, into the genre. And I'm not an expert in the genre at all, but this is always at the top of a lot of people's lists. And I think it's just it's awesome. It stands out. It almost has a bit of a Tolstoy / Dostoevsky vibe because of all of the family names, like very long family names, and the drama behind it. Like it almost feels like a little bit of Karamazov at the beginning of that book. And I don't know if I'm way off on that, but for me, I kind of felt that. And this book is unput down. Like this trilogy in general, like it's hard to put down. And you might be saying, well, this all sounds like super great. I would love to read a great thriller mystery with all those elements. But Jimmy, why is it number 10? So the first, we'll say 2 or 3 of these, I'll have to check, but definitely the first 2 that are on the list, 10 and 9. The reason why they are a little bit lower is because I don't like all of the books in the trilogy as much as the others. So I think that this series really is at its best in book 1, and that's because of the relationship between the 2 main characters. And I think books 2 and 3 are really cool. I think they go some wild places. I also think they become a little bit more ridiculous, not like totally absurd over the top, but definitely maybe bending your belief a little bit. And I think it also kind of gets away from what I really loved, which was, you know, the standing family mystery on top of these 2 characters, like kind of forming this unlikely connection. And those things take a bit of a backseat, even though the relationship is kind of at the core of the story, even towards the end, which is endearing. And I like books 2 and 3. But if I had to give book 1 a 5-star, I would probably give books 2 and 3 like 4 stars, maybe. So to me, the only reason why this isn't in the top 3 is just because I think books 2 and 3 don't quite hold the same weight as book 1 to me. And if you're somebody who is like, well, that sounds great, but I don't want to read the whole trilogy, I do think you can read book 1. You could read book 1 and probably be pretty satisfied. If someone else is a huge fan of the series, they might disagree, and I would welcome that actually in the chat if you've read this and you disagree. I would love to know. I don't want to steer people the wrong way, but I just think that this is exactly what I want out of a thriller, and also a little bit more than just the thrill. There's some really good stuff here. It does get dark at times, so if you're a little squeamish, I don't know if it's necessarily one that you want to rush to pick up, but I do think a lot of people would enjoy this, even if you're a certain type of reader, if you're a fantasy reader, sci-fi reader, take a step out, try it out. It's really great. And the year that this got into my top 5 was a stacked year at the top. So I hope that that kind of gives you an idea of just how much I really enjoyed this series. So Brent, we'll go to the chat and see the reactions. I'm glad that Brendan agrees, said good shit at number 10. I would agree. I did get a already. So that kind of makes me happy. I was hoping to throw a little bit of a curveball at people, but this is, these are truly my picks. So solid wrestling joke. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sir Jordan Drew said, super excited. Mark Lawrence has 6 trilogies. I like his odds. You can use code NUTS on DraftKings and parlay all of those and lose all of your money because he's not sniffing this list, Jordan. You know that. You know damn well he ain't sniffing this list, bro. Already I can see this list is fraught with bias and subjective takes. Valid. I'm going to bet I've read none of these. I would be shocked if you haven't read at least one of them. David said top 3 predictions: Fits in the Fool, Prince of Nothing, Lord of the Rings, Dark Horses are Age of Madness, and the Border Trilogy. Fun fact, I have not finished the Border Trilogy. I have not read book 3, and I feel like I need to read the first 2 again, but I'm kind of just not on the McCarthy vibe right now, unfortunately. Jimmy is becoming a hot girl reader. Respect. Becoming? I've been a hot girl reader. I mean, My Year of Rest and Relaxation is arguably one of my favorite books at this point. I don't want to say top 10 because I might have to make a top 10, and if it's not there, people call me on that. But Cy Kepler said there is a 3-movie Swedish-Danish adaptation. Interesting. Okay. Jimmy, top 10s have to regurgitate the same 10 books. We haven't read this. You get an F for your presentation. Well, there's plenty of the stuff on here. You probably see at other people's lists, but I am not concerned at all about that. I mean, what can you do? Like, make up stuff? You know, you got to pick with whatever you like. So, wait, Memory Star and Thorn will definitely make top 3. I have no clue what's going to happen. And this, David, was me putting together the list. I was like, oh yeah, this is easy. I know my top 3. I'm like, oh wait, I read that. Oh wait, I read that. Oh no, I read that too. How dare Jimmy have original opinions? I demand rigid conformity to fantasy booktube dogma. Well, hey, I'm not really fantasy booktube, am I? I'm kind of outside of that at this point, I think. Read all 3. Nightshade. Nice. Yeah. I think most people that I know that enjoyed book 1 went on to read book 2 and 3. And I only know maybe one person personally, I think, that said that they were like, I should have just stopped at book 1. Most people I know really enjoy all of it. So Daniel said, Jimmy got a bougie glass for that beer. Better not be Miller High Life or something. No, it's Blue Moon, and it is a Ommegang Brewery in Cooperstown, New York, and it's a Game of Thrones glass they did a limited release of, which is pretty cool. Brendan Park said, we know P.F. Hamilton's Night Dawn and a Reynolds Revelation Space are going to be 1 and 2, right? I actually really want to read Revelation Space. Ever since I read a version from Reynolds, I'm like, yeah, this has got to be something I get into. Even though I thought, what is it, House of Suns? Was that the other book I read of his? I thought it was just okay. But man, a version was a banger. Don Coven said, damn it, number 10 of my TBR is +3. Yeah, I'm going for 30 out of 30 here tonight. That's my goal for you, Don. Yeah, absolutely. Someone said, yeah, be careful. This trilogy can get rough at times. Yeah, very rough. Very, very rough. Oh, interesting. Is Barrow enough of a legend to get Greenboat on the list? If Fonda Lee had any idea what to do with him in the third finale, maybe. I just used Nuts 20 on hymns. It worked. Yeah, I was going to announce that sponsorship at the end. You don't know that Mark Lawrence is kind of freaky. He might be sniffing this list all day. That is incredible. He would not like reading that, I feel like. Nuts 20 definitely works on Blue Chew Chewable. What is this? What is happening right now? I needed this. I needed this after this week. Jimmy been a hot girl. Damn straight. I think it's the last series that I binged a few years ago. First one is definitely the best by quite a bit. The other 2 are very readable. Well, me and you are in pretty much complete agreement then. That makes me feel a little less left out. Queen Elliot said, I loved Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but I definitely was too young to fully appreciate it, so I should go back and read all 3. This is like definitely one of those trilogies that on a whim I could just pick up if I know I need something that I'm going to be able to get into and read fast and still enjoy it. Because I do enjoy Stieg Larsson's writing, by the way. I think that he's quite a good writer. Maybe people would expand on that if you've read him, if you think so. But I actually think he was very, very talented. And it's a shame, that he passed away, obviously. But that's number 10. Number 9. Are you? Oh, I forgot. Mrs. Nuts. I forgot. Little banner at the top. Forgot about that. Number 9. The Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin. Probably one of the most polarizing things on this list. To the point where I just fixed that overlay in real time. Sorry, Seth Plato. Yeah, there is more books in the Millennium Trilogy, which is the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy, which was number 10. But it's not really part of the first trilogy. It's like separate. And then someone else took over. So Am I counting 4-book trilogies? I am not. I am not. So The Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin is a very, very angry set of books that plays with a lot of different perspectives, but at the end of the day is kind of about a world being torn apart, quite literally. Geology having a massive effect in the story and in the conflict and what people are going through in the world, but also in the magic, which is really cool. And a mom trying to find her daughter. Yeah. So I've tried other N.K. Jemisin books on a whim, like just like started them or read the samples, and I have not clicked much with her other stuff. But there was a certain undertone of just like anger in this that I did find compelling. And I've seen people say that this is a bit edgy, a little rough around the edges. I don't disagree, actually. I don't necessarily think it's not edgy, but it's an edginess that I guess I vibed with in some regards. And then I also think that specifically in book 1, there is a lot of stuff done with perspective and like plot points that is really compelling and was pretty crazy the first time that I read it. Books 2 and 3 I thought were good, but I think that they are like significantly less than book 1. And as I think about it, this and Millennium probably could be swapped possibly. These were very tight and neck. But I do really like this trilogy. And if this is the only N.K. Jemisin that I ever end up really enjoying, that would be totally fine. Because this one does stand out to me. Like when I think of fantasy books that have like really taken me back, I would say that the 5th season is one of those. I actually have a review for the 5th season here on the channel. It's a very old review at this point. But I remember really appreciating what I was able to do with that video and kind of voicing my opinions. And in that video, I believe I even talk about how books 2 and 3 just really can't live up to what I felt in The Broken Earth. And that's kind of because once some things become apparent, it's hard, I think, for this book to kind of catch its footing. And I wonder maybe if possibly this could have made for a really great, you know, if you move things around, even with all the trilogy plot, maybe you could have done a single book or a duet, or a duology rather. But definitely a book that is pretty grim, pretty imaginary. Like I think the imagination around how shifting tectonic plates would be hellacious in the moment. Like if you really think about it, like, that's kind of apocalyptic. Like it's a cataclysm. It's terrifying in many ways. But also one that I think just embraces what it is, which is a fantasy book, and mixes a lot of like really neat narrative elements to it. So I like the writing, even though it's a little bit short, terse, rough around maybe the edges a little bit, and a bit edgy, as some would say. But I like this. And, you know, not every book needs to be sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes I think conveying anger through fiction is very, very effective. And it might not be effective for everyone, but it was effective for me. This is probably the most polarizing trilogy on the list. This is one I don't talk about that often, to be honest, because I don't know. I find a lot of the conversation around it to be muddied and kind of garbage, to be honest. But I love it. And Mrs. Nuts has read this, and we had really good conversations about it. So I love it. And that's why it's on the list. So. Yep, I knew it. Fantastic banner. Well, thank you. Amanda said no. And then there was Jemisin, let's go. Oh, nice, Don. Don found all 3 of the last at his library. Yeah, actually, you know, it's funny, Don. I think I got those books from the library as well. And I was surprised that they were like available because the Millennium Trilogy is really, really popular. So I think it's sold millions. Yeah, Mrs. Nuts is the best, and I do love her banner. Amanda said, if it has to be on the list, I'm glad at least it's this low. Well, I'm glad it can at least appease you. There's at least one other series on here that you're not going to be probably thrilled by. Brendan said the Revelation Space Saga is about world building and hard sci-fi ideas, not as character focused. There are 7 books, 2 short story collections. Yeah, it's definitely one of my white whales when it comes to sci-fi, I would say. What's up, Taylor? Good to see you. Let's go to Guinness again soon. Oh man, I hated the first Broken Earth book. I get why people love it, but it definitely wasn't for me. Listen, I should say this. I can understand why someone would bounce off this so hard. I think one of the things that annoys me about some of the conversation about this is that it becomes way less about the books. It becomes, about the author. It becomes about this shouldn't have won those Hugo, whatever. And it's just like, okay, but like, can we just talk about the damn book, And if someone reads the book and doesn't enjoy the playing with perspectives, doesn't enjoy that kind of harshness around the book, or thinks maybe the magic's silly, that's valid. That's cool. That's a conversation worth having. So I can totally understand and totally get why someone would bounce off this for sure. It could be a bit rocky. That's a good one. Annette said, love the first book. I need to finish the series like I need to finish most series I start. I do think it's worth finishing if you really loved book one, but I do think the expectations can be tempered just a little bit. K Fox said that Broken Earth is on the TBR. Well, I hope you enjoy it when you get to it. There's a lot of people saying it's on the TBR. Interesting. One of the relationships of book one was a bit much for me. It got awkward, a little awkward at some point. Yeah. I mean, the relationships definitely aren't something I would say that like I would strive towards. And then there's obviously the one bad relationship, and maybe that's the one you're talking about, but I thought it kind of fit with the tone of the book mostly. I love the Broken Earth trilogy, and the 5th season is amazing. The Dreamblood duology and the second book, The Shadowed Sun, are actually my favorites of hers, and I think are actually better. I tried a sample of the Dreamblood duology's first book, and I wasn't feeling it. And then I tried The City We Became and was not feeling it. So who knows if I will continue to read her books. But if I were going to read one, it would probably be the 100,000 Kingdoms trilogy or whatever. Brandon Sanderson has that trilogy in his, I think, top 10 fantasy. I'm pretty sure I remember him mentioning it, which I thought was kind of interesting. There are scenes in the first book I still think about, and I read it maybe 6 years ago. Yeah. If I'm honest with myself, top 10 trilogy would probably just be Abercrombie and Hobb. Fair. Which book is Mrs. Nutt's fave in the trilogy? Well, she's here, but I'm pretty sure it's the 5th season. I'm pretty sure. I don't know anyone whose isn't the 5th season out of them, to be honest. It's definitely worth a read. It's really creative. Yeah, I like what is done with the magic, and it all being based around, the movement of mass and geology and such. I thought it was pretty cool. I feel like I'm one of the only people that hated Broken Earth trilogy. I felt the book one was decent, but nothing happened in the other two books until the last couple pages of the series. Yeah, I do think the plot gets stretched pretty thin in books 2 and 3, but I promise you, Christina, if you would like to find other people who hate the book, they're out there. I promise you, because they all comment anytime I bring it up. Not anyone here in the chat, but people who don't regularly watch the channel, and they always have something horrendous to say. I don't think you would fit in with those people, by the way. But there are a lot of critical reviews from people I know, actually, other YouTubers that review books and such. So you might be able to find someone that you feel like a catharsis with, and being like, what? Why do people like this? You might be able to find that out there. So it's on my to be recycled list, but glad you loved it. Yeah, in fact, one of my good friends, Belltube, doesn't like it at all. I'm pretty sure he thought it was total shit, if I remember. Amanda said, 5th season should have worked for me so perfectly, but I can't stand the writing style so modern and such weird swearing. Fair. And the perspective choice felt like a look what I can do versus serving the story. Well, I do like literary gymnastics at times. I mean, Cloud Atlas is a book that I very much enjoyed, though I think Cloud Atlas has a lot of merit outside of just its exercises around writing. So I don't necessarily disagree with the modern or the swearing at all. The perspective choice, I could maybe see that. I'm genuinely surprised that by Sanderson having it as his favorite, because the first book in that trilogy is basically fantasy erotica. He has a lot of respect. He calls her Nora, I think. But I think he has her in his... No, you know what? It wasn't the 100,000 Kingdoms. It was specifically, I think she was in his top 10 fantasy authors. I think he put her up there. And he had kind of a scale of why he did that. You should go watch it. Honestly, it's really good. Even if you don't like Brandon Sanderson, I get that. It's fine. I think that his episodes about the genre are always interesting to hear. And he does put a lot of his biases aside, because I don't think he's the biggest fan of George R. R. Martin, but he had I think he had George at #1 for living fantasy authors, I'm pretty sure. And he had a lot of really nice things to say about George as an editor, which obviously I like because I have a bias, but it's something that, a lot of people wouldn't have known, but George is a very, very great editor and has been very gracious for some younger writers, at least at some point in his career. So Amanda said, I love literary gymnastic. It just felt pointless in 5th season. Amanda, why do you got to do this? I'm not sorry that I got you the worst Annie Ann's of all time now. I'm glad that they were terrible. Not really. What a waste of time and money that was, right? I'm wondering if the books would be received as well nowadays. I think so. Maybe not books 2 and 3, but I think book 1 does enough. I mean, here's the thing. Regardless of whether people like it or not, at least it's different than a lot of the other stuff out there. It could just be another slapstick release once a year type deal. I'd sound a little bitter. But I like books that are doing something, or at least trying to go for something. For instance, I don't think James Islington's a fabulous writer by any means, but the dude absolutely goes for it. He just throws things out and he's like, let's see what we can do with this, because this genre should be all about trying things and being crazy. And for that, I have an immense amount of respect. So things that kind of can at least break a mold or feel different than other things in the genre always get a nod of respect from me. Hayden said, book 1 was the most put together for me, but book 2 had some of the best moments in the trilogy. Getting the second perspective was an emotional nuke the whole time. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Sanderson and Jemison are good friends. Yeah. Yeah, Amanda, you don't ever have to be sorry. It does have in-world swearing, which saying rusted and stuff is never going to be something I can get behind. But I did turn my head to it a bit. So, oh man. So Sanderson actually has great reading taste. He knows how to recognize good writers and great reads. I'll tell you what, I actually agree with this. The way he talks about Guy Gavriel Kay and even George or anybody, I always find myself taking something away when he talks about the genre, for sure. Amanda said, I totally see why people love 5th season. I wish I could get into, that club, because it should be one of my favorite series with themes and bleakness. Well, I've heard of another author that maybe wants to write something a bit geological, and that author should totally do that. That would be sick. It would be really sick if someone did that. Okay. All right, number 8. Shall we move on? Now, this one might get me a little bit of heat. Lord of the Rings. Some people are going to be mad it's on here, and I think more people will be mad that it's number 8. But the fact of the matter is, wait, you don't like fracking from Battlestar Galactica? Well, I've only watched the first episode of the miniseries for Battlestar Galactica, I think. Millennium Trilogy and Broken Earth, man, what can we do as a community to make sure every top list isn't the exact same? What's our hope for the future? Ben, I think this is sarcasm, or maybe that these really are on a lot of other people's lists, or maybe you're praising me, but I think we all gotta, and I think maybe Ben's being sarcastic, but just in general, I think people gotta relax about people having the same picks. I mean, come here, let me tell you something. There's only so many things in the fantasy genre that are series or trilogies. There's a lot of bad trilogies out there. There's a lot of bad series out there. And I always implore people, if you don't like other people's lists, make your own. And by the way, this is not aimed at you, Ben, at all. Love you, Ben. But I see this all the time. People are like, good Lord. I can't believe so many people like Malazan. It's well, I can. It's sold 9 million copies. 9 million. I think it sold more than that. Why is Wheel of Time on everyone's list? I don't know. It sold 120 million copies. I don't know. It's been around for 4 decades. I don't know. It seems weird to me too. It has to be big fantasy cash and checks. Again, I need to be. Yeah, Ben said total sarcasm. That recent vid by some rando made me big mad. Ben, I had a feeling you're being sarcastic, and I have to be very clear. I'm not coming at you at all. So I just don't care. I don't know. I don't care if people like the same shit. My number one series, I only know like 10 people have read it. Well, maybe that's series 2. Oh, no. Well, what it doesn't matter. I guess what I'm trying to say is like, teach their own. Who cares? Lord of the Rings. Listen, I'm gonna put my harsh truths of my own opinion out here at first. The Lord of the Rings has some boring ass moments in it. The Lord of the Rings at times feels so masturbatory in some of the detailed descriptions of trees for 17 pages. The songs are hit or miss, mostly miss for me, and I'm just being honest. But to pretend as if I don't come around this time every single year, this is why I made this list, by the way, because every time this time of year comes around, I want to read Fellowship of the Ring again, every single time. And I was in the mood, and I was like, man, I want to read Fellowship of the Ring, but I can't because I got all this other stuff to read. And I was like, where would Lord of the Rings fall in a trilogy list for me? And there were a few renditions of this list where Lord of the Rings was higher, like top 5, and there was some where it was number 10. But I did settle on number 8 simply for the fact that there's a lot of stuff that I would rather read instead. But I can't pretend this isn't like one of the most formative things in my entire life. Even independent of the movies, like these books are very, very important to me. And obviously I don't have to talk about the magnitude of impact it had on the genre. Like I would never need to talk about that. That'd be very boring of me, but it had a big impact on the genre. No, I like all of the books. And the coolest thing about this trilogy, and it's not so much unlike rereading A Song of Ice and Fire, is that every time I go through it, I have a new favorite. Like I change my favorite or I change a favorite scene. And I do think the older I get, the more I appreciate these books. I remember trying these when I was like 11 years old, and they challenged me so much, and I had so much trouble with it. And I don't know if it's dyslexia or if it was just I was so used to reading like Boxcar Kids at that point, or Boxcar Children. What was it? I don't remember. This was like the first big step for me as a reader, and I will always remember feeling defeated by these books, just trying to get out of the Shire and coming back to them time and time again and getting a little bit further each time. And then by the time I made it through the whole thing, it was just like, this is like, I felt kind of accomplished, and maybe I gaslit myself into enjoying it, but I've read them a lot since then too. And every single time I get something out of it, there are always times where the books drag. Facts. There's stuff in it that is not my favorite. But I always feel drawn back to this thing. And also, I am just really kind of impressed by the things that Tolkien was able to do. Recently, I've gotten kind of the itch maybe to possibly Children of Hurin. And I have the little standalone novel that I think Christopher Tolkien put out. And I think I'm going to be getting into that instead of rereading these. I don't know when that will be. But Children of Hurin is on my list. And yeah, I mean, as far as like atmosphere, originality, overall immersion, it's hard to beat a dude that created a language. You know, it's wild. So it's not my favorite series of all time. Lord of the Rings, I don't think makes a top 10 list for my series of all time. But for trilogies, I think it has to be up there. And it's kind of the quintessential trilogy, in my opinion. So, and the movies are really, really, really sick. If you haven't seen them, you should watch them. They're really unknown. But thanks, Peter Jackson. You're the best. Not so much Rings of Power. Not so much Rings of Power. So maybe this is a little too high for people. Maybe some people are tired of seeing Lord of the Rings. Like I said, my list is not exempt from cliches. This happens to be one of them, but I truly do enjoy it from the bottom of my heart, even though some of it is boring. Your wall poster is about the cheap shot you from behind. Wall poster? Oh, you mean the map from Middle Earth on my back wall. Good eyes. Honestly, really, really good eyes. Oh, thank you, Amanda. So I love your list and your reading diversity, Jimmy. Well, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. Also, they finished. Okay, cage match, Jimmy and Ben. There will be no cage match between me and Ben. Ben would whoop me. Jimmy, stop stalling and justify yourself. The trees are sick as hell. Boo, Jimmy. That's fair. Tom Bombadil is awesome. You can't convince me otherwise. I actually really love Tom Bombadil. And at the same time, kind of glad he's not in the movies. I like that he's kind of a book-only thing. It's almost more endearing that way. What's up, Dark One Stain? Finally catching alive. Good to see you, dude. Really, really good to see you. Are you working out while you listen to this? You usually are. Tom Bombadil is the GOAT. He is. Tom is the chillest dude and probably grows his own straight of the good herb. Dude, I saw somebody the other day. I don't remember where it was. It was something on social media, and it was just this dude being like, hey, just so we know, the wacky weed in Lord of the Rings is not weed. It is tobacco, okay? Tolkien was staunchly anti-drug. God. The Tolkien bros are brutal, dude. They're brutal. Cringe. Boxcar Children slaps Austin. I could not agree more. Beps is sending a ring wraith to my house. Make sure they grab my DoorDash order. I have it scheduled to be delivered in about 30 minutes. I'm getting some Indian food. So if the ring wraith could grab that, that'd be sick. I had trouble with the Fellowship in my early 20s. I know people who have trouble with it in their 30s and 40s and 50s. It takes a little bit to getting into, but it's not as like archaic as some people make it out to be, I think. For the love of God, Jimmy, please read the Silmarillion. It will broaden and deepen your appreciation for Tolkien tenfold. I will at some point. I will. You all have fantastic taste, unlike Jimmy. Well, that's mean. Oh, man. Interesting. David said Lord of the Rings was the first thing I read after A Song of Ice and Fire. In that sense, it jarred me because it went from living and breathing characters to Lord of the Rings. Fondness has grown over time, and The Return of the King Part 2 rocks. It does rock. I also think that Lord of the Rings is a really good example of where pretty flat characters can be really effective if you're telling the right type of story for them, because, I mean, they are fairly flat. And I don't mean that as an insult. And the entire point of what I'm saying here is that flat characters can work for your story if you know what you're writing. So, Children of Hurin was such a good read. I've heard it's awesome. I heard it's like really dark. So I kind of want to check it out. Mitch said, I legit watched clips of Lord of the Rings several times. So it does not get old. Yeah, those movies will never get old to me. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Children of Hurin's only 326 pages. Love to see that. Love to see that. ADHD reader said, I would marry them movies if I could. You probably can. Taylor said, I really love Lord of the Rings, but almost never recommend it. I feel like more people will bounce off at the books than enjoy them. Yeah, I think living up to what the movies are in the book, they're very different. I mean, I know a lot of people love both, but the movies are a completely different spirit than the books. And I don't think that's a bad thing, by the way, but I feel that way. Maybe people would disagree, but, you know, it's a blockbuster action adventure, you know, trilogy of movies. And, you know, I think the Lord of the Rings itself is much more an exercise in like almost myth. And to me, at least, I get something different out of each of them, though it's hard not to picture the movie whenever I read them. So, Kiss the Hobbit movies, married Lord of the Rings movies, and kill Rings of Power TV show? Yes. I understand why this is low on the list. It was revolutionary for the genre, but it doesn't mean it has to be your favorite by any means. Yeah, and I mean, low as in top 10. I think my list, I had 22 trilogies or 21 trilogies. So it did pretty respectably, I would say. Yes, Jimmy, I knew you were a good person. I love Bombadil. Also, watching people watch the movies for the first time on YouTube is the best reaction content out there, only surpassed by Game of Thrones reaction content, just because of how absurd everything is. Josiah Peterson says, I hope I appreciate the Lord of the Rings books more as I grow older. I did enjoy them, but as you said, there's many other books I'd rather read. Hoping to reread in the next year or two, though. There is a series on this list that I always recommend to people if they want to reread Lord of the Rings but don't want to reread it. That probably just gave away what it is if you've listened to me for any amount of time, but I refuse to believe what they smoked on Lord of the Rings wasn't Mary Jane. Well, there's a Tolkien bro out there that's pissed that you think that. The Silmarillion is perfect for sleeping. It's too good. I heard the audiobooks narrated by Andy Serkis are amazing. I might revisit them this way. Yes, and honestly, the original ones are pretty good as well. So, Aragorn and the Two Towers single-handedly triggered my discovery of teenage hormones. Bengus Khan said, I genuinely think having such touchstone series is a positive feature of the community, allows for more connection and healthy arguments. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. What's your least favorite completed trilogy of the 22? You know, it's funny. I almost made part of this like my least favorite. And I remember there was one that I felt pretty strongly about. And now I can't remember what it is. Dude, the Poppy War ending has aged fairly bad in my brain. I don't think I'd put that on there, though. Man, there is a Monica, this is a really good question. And I actually had this answer, but I was like, I don't really want to be negative. Like, not that I'm I tell you guys console. I just call Lord of the Rings pretty boring at points. But I was just thinking, it's not really the vibe I'm going for tonight. I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you on that. There's such an obvious answer. I can't remember it. Let's see. Oh, why do I do this 9? I ask myself this every day. Read this for the first time as an adult, struggled to get through the first book and haven't picked it back up. I get why people love it and how much I'm into the genre. And that is perfectly okay by me. Perfectly okay. Someone do a wellness check on Philip Chase for this 8th place finish. That's amazing. Daniel said, it is pretty clear in the books that pipeweed is supposed to be tobacco, but it's supposedly to be weed in the movies, and that's why the movies are better. All right. Oh, no, Monica, you don't have to apologize. I actually don't mind it. I was just more like, I don't think people will care to hear that. Like, I was like, I don't know if people, let me see if I can, no, I don't even have it in my notes. Damn it. But I'm disappointed in myself for not remembering. It's been a hell of a week. The moment they left the Academy Hop War, I was bored. Great concept, hated the execution. I thought book 2 was rather good, but man, when you really start thinking about that book 3, there's some stuff in there that kind of sucks, unfortunately. I have to think about it. Number 7 is The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell, historical fiction, maybe with a little bit of suspension for like magical realism at some moments, but really a historical fiction. This is King Arthur retelling. I am not a well-versed expert on King Arthur retellings. There are many other people who are. You can go check out Library Ladder, or Raph Blue Taxt has a video on that. So I'm not going to make any sweeping statements about this being the best Arthurian tale ever or anything like that. I just haven't experienced enough of them to say that. I'm not super drawn to Arthurian legend, just to be honest with you. However, this trilogy from start to finish for me was excellent. I love the idea of kind of telling the tale to people around them and bouncing back and forth from the present to the past. And quite honestly, Durfal is just such a lovable dunce of a main character, but I would be a liar to say, Merlin is tremendous. And I wish I had Alan here to do his impersonation of the audiobooks. There are many quotable parts of it, but it's an Arthurian tale written by one of the more prolific historical fiction writers in Bernard Cornwell. I know a lot of people give him crap for not being historically accurate or whatever. I'm not smart enough for any of that stuff. All I can tell you is that this was kind of pure adrenaline for me. The ending of book 2 is the highest point for me in the series. And I thought the audio experience by Jonathan Keeble was just absolutely masterful. So to me, this was like one of those ones that I went straight through. And I think this was a little bit after I'd stopped like binging everything I read and started to kind of sprinkle in new things to keep things fresh for myself. But not with this one. I read these all 3 back to back to back, and I had no problems. I had 0 problems doing so. I kind of just turned it on, rode through it, had a blast. And really, really, really had an appreciation for just how dastardly Merlin was. I think if I had to rank the books, it would be book 2, 3, then 1. Book 2 is where I think a lot of the characters really start to come into the limelight or kind of come into themselves. But there is a scene in book 1 on an island. And I remember I was in a squat rack at the gym listening to the audiobook. And a character just takes this turn for the demented on this island. And it was so horrifying. It shocked me and kind of spooked me. And I remember almost getting buried underneath my weight in the squat rack because I was like, whoa, God. Like the audiobook like screamed at me. I was like, ah. And that will forever live in my brain at the time I almost, sent my spine out of my butthole. So for me, the Warlord Chronicles, just a great time. Really good. Turned off all of my other senses other than enjoyment. And I think to that, it's pretty cool. So This one I think is a pretty big in this corner book too. This is pretty popular. And to me, it had to be a little bit higher just because I did enjoy all 3 books, even though 2 and 3 are definitely, I think, the stronger ones out of them. So let's see. That's the Poppy Warlord. Let's go. Ooh, nice. Love the Warlord Chronicles. Annette, I did not like the first book. I do think it gets better from there, but if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's totally fair. This is Peak. Fine. I will subscribe again. You're twisting my arm, Jimmy. I'm going to send you on a roller coaster tonight, Bebs, for sure. That's pretty funny. Old Raph like Bernie about as much as Ahab likes Moby. Yeah, Raph is not a fan of Bernard Cornwell. Brent said, I tried to read book 1. It was bored out of my skull. Felt like I was reading a different book than everyone else. I was pretty immersed in it in book 1. Like I said, that one scene, I think it's called like the Island of Skulls or Island of Death or something, where character goes after another character that was sent there, whatever. But again, I think book 2's ending is like jaw dropping. It kind of, as someone who's not very versed in Arthurian legend, I'm sure everyone else saw it coming, but the end of book 2 was like, oh my gosh. Also, I really enjoyed Lancelot in this trilogy. Who Guy That said, I want to read this trilogy so badly, but I feel like I should read some classic Arthurian stories before this retelling. Would you recommend this for someone not familiar with the story? I mean, I barely know I know the gist of it. Like I saw movies when I was a kid and stuff, and I think I read one in school, but just jump into it. Be great. Yes, Sarah Reeds is also a big Arthurian retelling fan and has a video on them. Yes, Sarah does. Yes, that is true. Shout out to Sarah. Miss her dearly. Is this better than the Saxon stories? I did not enjoy those. From what I know, yes. I want to read the Sharp novels. Those are the ones I want to read from Cornwell, probably. Yes, the ending of book 2 by audio is one of the most... why you got to use words I can't pronounce? Amazing experiences of my entire life. Thrilling, terrifying, heart-rending stuff. Scintillating? Am I just, do I know this word and I'm just butchering it? Ben, you have such a vast vocabulary. People should listen to you more, not me. Why are books in the wrong order in that picture? Hey, Mrs. Nuts, you hear that? You messed up big time. Big time. This is coming out of your pay. I also miss Sarah Reed. Maternal Pillow said, yeah, I have many fears involving the squat rack. You just got to embrace it. You know what I mean? I'm calling Cap. If Jimmy was in the squat rack, he was doing bicep curls. Ain't no way your knees were structurally sound enough to squat when you read this, dude. You should have seen me in the gym today doing legs. It was like 2014 Jimmy Nuts in there. Forgot I was old for a second. It was great. This series hit me like a brick truck. Wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. I really enjoyed it. Enemy of God was my favorite. Yeah, I go back and forth between books 2 and 3, but I think I can say book 2 is just because of the ending being so good. Brandon gives me another approval. Good shit at number 7, Jimmy. Give it up to Giles Christian, though, for writing an author series even more boring than this, which was tough. I have that first book, and I'm like, do I want to... Like, Giles Christian has such a high spot in my brain for Hellmouth, so I went and bought that. I also bought... I think he has like a Viking trilogy, God's Vengeance or something like that. I picked that up, too, and I'm like terrified to read his other stuff because I love Hellmouth so much. I don't want to ruin my perception of him. That's dumb of me, but it's true. We are sucking diesel. Monty Python and the Holy Grail for those needing a concise Arthurian primer. Very nice. Scintillating. Scintillating? Oh, forget it, you guys. This is brutal. People are saying it's their favorite word. And Ned said in the first book, they were all just pissing all the time. It was weird. What? You don't piss all the time? Wait till you get older. All right. Silly tintillating. Guys, watching me have to suffer through this has to be so awful for all of you. I'm so sorry. Giles Christian's Lancelot was so bad. Hi, Jimmy. Hey, Tori. Piles on. Giles Christian, who'd he ever beat? Huh? I don't know. I tagged him with the Steiner brothers. I'm way cooler than he is. Sharp is so good. Also another great TV adaptation starring Sean Bean. Yeah, I've really wanted to watch it because I love Sean Bean. Jimmy 9, Don 3. Okay. Fever said Lancelot is peak, and he's the smartest person I know. Fever is one of the smarter people I know. But who knows? He might be trolling us all. You don't know. Number 6, Age of Madness by Joe Abercrombie. First of all, I had to make an appearance on here. I struggled, and yeah, I did try to pick one trilogy from each author. To be honest with you, First Law, if I was doing them, First Law would probably be right around number 6. So I felt like I could just kind of put both of them in this. So, interchangeably. But the reason why I decided to display Age of Madness by Joe Abercrombie is because I think that this is just where Joe Abercrombie got to his best abilities. Really, really skinnied these up. There wasn't a lot of bloat on these at all. And the characters, to me, were just as great as the first trilogy, though, and this is going to sound contradictory to what I just said, I do think the characters from the first trilogy are more iconic, but I can't actually quantify why that is in my brain. And I still love a lot of the Age of Madness characters, quite a bit. Orso's awesome. There's a lot of good with the characters, but I just think that it's such a tight trilogy, and could have been a disaster, by the way. Could have been an absolute disaster. Like, why did this guy do another trilogy? But I think that this is him at his very best, especially The Trouble with Peace. I thought book 2 was kind of the peak of this, but I enjoyed all 3. The big drawback to these, other than if you just don't like Joe Abercrombie, would be the fact that I do think it's fairly predictable. I remember before the 3rd book came out, I think every single thing that I thought would happen to resolve the story besides one thing did. But I also am a big believer that predictability is not a negative all the time, and I did not think it was a negative here. The French Revolution inspirations here was a lot of fun, and honestly, just seeing another generation of despicable people was good times. It was really good times. And also having a character kind of based on Dave Bautista was kind of fun. But yeah, it was just tighter than the first trilogy. Definitely a little bit more satisfying, I think, in the plot points, though I love some of the subversions in the first trilogy that piss a lot of people off. And very few authors make me laugh as much as Joe Abercrombie as well. So I think this is the very best of Abercrombie right here. And for me, I love the fact that when I flip open a Joe Abercrombie book, I can usually tell it's Joe Abercrombie within a few sentences, and that each character really has their own way of just being kind of the worst. But also, he puts them in uncomfortable situations, and they have to kind of bend and flex. And while a lot of the arcs end up, for the most part, being circular, I am also kind of a big fan of circular arcs. And that's not every character, by the way. So, and also, I think some of the magic stuff that he does in here, a lot with the visions up north, really, really good. So, to me, I think that this is probably his best work and representative of an author that I would definitely have to put in my top 10 authors list, I think. So, Age of Madness was a bit of a no-brainer. I was shocked that I had it outside of the top 5. I think the only reason why I have it outside of the top 5 is probably attributed to scope. Joe Abercrombie doesn't have like the most original world building. And when I shouldn't say original, he doesn't have the most elaborate world building, the most thought-provoking world building. He also does not have like the most, unbelievable plots of all time. You're really reading him for his style in which he writes, which I've always kind of compared to Quentin Tarantino. And also obviously for like the dialogue and the banter and everything else and character work. So, with that, I just think some of these other books also do characters and all those other things really well and have big scope or better plotting, whatever it might be. So it was hard to put it here, but it is at number 6. And I did get to meet Joe Abercrombie this year, and he was a huge fan of the channel, huge fan of me. Said I'm his favorite booktuber, and everyone else sucks. I mean, it was really nice of him. In reality, I told him, hey, dude, you're the man. He said, I am the man. And I said, do you still work out? And he goes, nope, I'm getting old. And I said, all right. And then I left. That was kind of it. And then he hit on Mrs. Nuts. So honestly, big L for me in the channel. Didn't mean to say all that out loud, but here we are. Mrs. Nuts sat in line and actually got some books signed because Library Ladder brought too many books and had to split them up. And Kelsey was standing there, and Bridger was like, will you take these to get them signed? And Kelsey was like, sure. And he's like, thank you so much. That's my Bridger impersonation. And she goes up, and Joe is obviously very kind to her, very nice to her. And all Kelsey can think is I've never read a single page of any of his books. a bit awkward for her, but way to stick in the pocket there, Mrs. Nuts. You're the best. Maternal Pillow said, don't know if it's shown up yet, but I've begun reading the Dragonbone Chair, and the Broken Binding edition is a thick boy. All of them. Wait till you get the Green Angel Tower. Oh, goodness. Still need to read Age of Madness. The Heroes is my favorite Abercrombie so far. The Heroes would probably be, if I had to pick like individual book from Abercrombie, it's either The Trouble with Peace or The Heroes would be my favorite, which is interesting because nothing happens in The Heroes, but I really enjoy it. Age of Madness is peak. Some of the best fantasy I've read in years. Honestly, Abercrombie's best work. I do think it's his best work in totality. Orso is my husband. That's amazing. I agree. First Law is more iconic, but Age of Madness is better written. I kind of felt like that as well. I didn't like The Wisdom of Crowds, says Flower Pick. So I actually know a decent amount of people who did not enjoy the third book. In fact, I know a couple people, it ruined the trilogy for them. But like I said, I kind of could see where it was going. So maybe I was just fine with it. A bit of shenanigans pulled at the end, but I liked it. So I enjoyed it. It honestly thrills me to be in the know that I still have so much Abercrombie to read. It's so nice when you can rely on that author being consistent. Yeah, I always call it my rainy day authors. It's like Carcanis by Erickson's just been sitting back there and it's just begging to be read when I'm in a bad mood or having a reading slump. And Abercrombie's one of those authors as well. Unfortunately, I've read pretty much everything that I wanted to read from him so far. So Yanis, Abercrombie had to make an appearance in the top 10 list. You have to be realistic. So far, I'm 1 out of 4. Is that 1 out of 4 for guessing or that you've read? I'm very curious, Rogue. Let me know. Joe Abercrombie likes to mess with the established tropes, and I really dig that. Yeah, I think in the time that he was doing it, it was a little more fresh. I think nowadays, subversion has been a little overplayed, and I don't blame people who are kind of tired of it. But for me, as long as it's done well, I can still have a good time. So the end of their quest made me laugh. It's my favorite part of the trilogy. Unpopular opinion, I prefer the Age of Madness cast overall than the original trilogy. Not to say Giselle, Logan, Glotka aren't great, but Orso, Savina, and Leo live in my head. For me, like, they have to be pretty level. I think the Band of Boys up north is really what pulls me to the first trilogy. But, yeah. Jofia says, was Mistborn already mentioned? It was in fact not. It was in fact not, unfortunately. But who knows? Maybe it'll be number 1. Mitch said, I don't get how his subversions being predictable is inherently worse than non-subversions being predictable. I'll predict any and all books. So these authors, walk on conditioned ground. Well said. Definitely prioritizing Age of Madness for early next year. Jimmy only likes Chads. That's why Martin is number 1. If Martin had a real trilogy, he would be number 1. Abercrombie, Absolute Cinema. Seems to be a theme with Abercrombie. Third book ruined 2 of his trilogies for me, too. I still want to try The Heroes. I think you could enjoy The Heroes. I know that you appreciate some military stuff, and a lot of military action is standing around and waiting, and that book really pushes that to the limit. Four Corners of the Page said, Wisdom of the Crowds felt a little too over the top by the end for me, but still a fabulous trilogy. Yeah, I didn't necessarily feel like it was over the top. There were some shenanigans. That's fair. Oh, 1 read, 4 not read. Okay, Rogue, I see. I would love for people, by the way, if you guys want to do what Rogue has done and a couple other people have done, if you want to tell me how many you've read out of them, I actually think that that's kind of interesting. Just out of my pure curiosity. So, Tori, I honestly, if you read The Heroes, I hope you really like it, because I know more people who hate The Heroes than love The Heroes, but I really love The Heroes. Specifically, one guy in the military there is pretty great. All right, top 5. Are you guys ready? I got to quit yapping. It has been an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm just now getting into, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Number 5. This was hard to put here, but it's Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad the Chad Williams, good friend of the channel. I have an interview here with Tad. Was absolutely swept away by Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and I actually like the sequels, I think, a bit more, and I think Heart of What Was Lost, which is the novella between the 2 series that you should definitely read if you read them, is even, I mean, Heart of What Was Lost might be my favorite Tad Williams book. Possibly. But, I mean, Definitely a little undervalued when people talk about the genre. I think there's been enough, I don't know, it's all skewed about what you see, but I do think that it's finally gotten its due in many regards, especially with some of these reprintings and getting eyes on it. Much like Raymond Feist's Magician trilogy, you're seeing people kind of pick that back up, but without reading that, I can't really comment, but I can say for sure that I think Memory of Sorrow and Thorn is like one of the most pivotal things that was published in the genre and inspired a lot of authors. I can pretty much name an author that's written in the last 20 years, and they probably were inspired by Tad Williams in some regard. And yeah, these books are slow. Simon's a bit of a dumbass, and they are slightly overwritten, possibly. But I do think Tad Williams has a real knack for kind of channeling Tolkien without being a carbon copy, without following every single... the plot, very different, by the way. But I'm talking about literal, like, writing, his prose style. I think he really channeled a lot of what Tolkien does and kind of made it slightly more modern and more digestible. And earlier I said there's a series on the list that if you want to reread Lord of the Rings, but you don't want to reread Lord of the Rings, this is what you should read. And I agree. With myself, obviously. I meant to say this is what I was talking about. Memory of Sorrow and Thorn, to me, is just a pillar of the genre, and a farm boy done right and done really well. He's infuriating, but some of the other characters that are filled around Simon are just absolutely incredible. Benebek will always be one of my favorite side characters in any fantasy or any book for that matter. On top of royalty that is being manipulated, good and bad royalties here, an existential threat with a massive, massive history and lore, gold mine. So many of the things that you see in the series that you love, including A Song of Ice and Fire, were definitely inspired here. And Tad Williams has a knack for writing. In fact, so much so that he can't seem to ever get his trilogies to be 3 books. And by the way, I know some people are going to say this is actually 4 books. That's only in the UK, and as of now with the broken bindings. And when I read it, it was a trilogy published in the United States. So to me, it's a trilogy. Green Ocean Tower is one of the longest books ever. And I think it took me like a month and a half to read. And it was the quintessential like December snow on the ground read for me. Simon going out, growing, learning, seeing new places is just kind of everything I want from like typical fantasy. And I just think he's really talented. And one of the best parts about this trilogy is that there's a real sense of world here. There's a real sense of different areas and different cultures. And you could probably find a 1-for-1 for most, there's a lot of inspiration here from different places over in Europe. But I still think it doesn't feel as cliche as maybe it sounds. And I think that the traveling in the different areas all across Ostenard, which is the world, they're just some of my favorites. You know, jumping back into Ostenard is always something that I'm interested in. And I'm so glad that he wrote the sequels. I do think they're better. And we still get a lot of Naban. You even get something out with the Thrivings folks or Thrivings folk. And there's a whole lot of prophecy here. There's some twists and turns. And I actually love the ending. I love the ending of this trilogy. I don't think an ending has to make a series, but it certainly didn't hurt in this one for me. So probably, I mean, all of Ostenard, like if you take all of the books in this series, definitely has to probably be, I think, a top 5 series. I'd have to think about it. I'll do a series, by the way, where I cover things that are bigger than trilogies. But man, Tad Williams, we're so lucky that he's still writing. We're lucky that he wrote this, and truly just a guy like any other. And he was very, very gracious with his time to come on the channel, so I'm a bit biased possibly, but I had already read the trilogy before then, so leave me alone. Yes, there are 4 books in the image. It's the Broken Binding editions. It's a damn trilogy. I promise. Okay, I promise. Sir Jordan Drew said that they've read 0 of these books so far. There's 3 for 5. 1. What in the world? Chapters Chasers BC, Caught Alive. Hello, it's 5:45 in Dubai. Well, greetings. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in. That's wild. Nemo said, I've only read Lord of the Rings. Okay, well, I'm glad. This is actually really good because I would love to give you guys something to think about, maybe pick up. Also, there's like Saw. To go back to Memory, Saw, and Thorn, it's just such a spiritual bridge from Lord of the Rings to like Wheel of Time to A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, I think if you're someone who's like really interested in the fantasy genre and you want to kind of have like the quintessential reads, I don't think anything's necessary to read, but this would probably be a good one to add to the list if you're interested in that type of thing. So, planning to pick up Dragonbone Chair in December, Sammy. I love that. Good for you. I think it's really good to read in the winter. Just fair warning, everyone. And I haven't read any of the other comments, but I'm sure someone's gonna be like, this book was boring as hell, and it is slow. I mean, do not go into this expecting Faithful and the Fallen or Bound and the Broken, the Cahill type pacing. Like, you're not going to get, this is very slow, methodical fantasy. And like I said, maybe sometimes a little long-winded and a little overwritten, but I really dig what Tad does. You know, I'm just a big fan. So just read Dragonbone, Stone of Farewell happening soon. Stone of Farewell is a slammer. The exaggerated TDM that people attribute to Tolkien, I found actually true of Tad. Damn, T. Baggins. That's brutal. Cy Kapler, number 5. Hey, I love all these series. You know, I think from 6 on, it's probably all, 10 out of 10s for me. So let's see. I see no reason to consider Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn a trilogy, but not Last King of Ostenard. Reporting this video for misinformation. I still haven't read Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, but it's one of the ones I'm convinced I'll love. It's been waiting on my shelf for years, and it's going to happen in the next couple of years for sure. I hope that you get to it, and I hope that you love it. Edgar, thank you. He said, your Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn review is what made me a fan of your channel. That's one of the videos, the first videos that actually kind of like, took off, and, for a book review, taking off like 10,000 views or whatever. But I think a large amount of my channel is built on the authors that I'm mentioning, this and then the next one. Is a big reason why my channel grew the way it did. So Simon is the dumbass, but he is my dumbass. He really is. He really is. Brent said, yes, Tad the Chad, everything Ostenard is incredible. If you're looking for something like big scale, great world building, something, I'm big on immersion when it comes to epic fantasy, and Ostenard is as immersive as anything else. I mean, in my opinion. So the Witchwood Crown was perfection to me, my favorite. Also, what a banger book 1, but also what a great cover, huh? Simon is a 14-year-old dumbass for sure. I think we were all dumb at 14, weren't we? Jack said, Stone of Farewell I found to be a struggle of a middle book, but hesitant to read the last book because it's massive but heard great things, and I do want to finish it. I do think it's worth it, and I do agree that Stone of Farewell is a middle book. I just happen to think it's a really good middle book, but you should definitely read The Green Inch Tower. Love Morghanis. I love all the characters. I love them. Monica said, I've DNF'd Dragonbone Chair twice, and since then I've read A Song of Ice and Fire. It's my favorite series of all time, so now I'm wondering if retrying Dragonbone Chair will read differently. It will. It will. Anyone that says that, A Song of Ice and Fire is I have to always say this. If someone says it's a clone, just know that they're wrong. And I feel very confident that I could debate that. But there is certainly a lot of lineage between the two series, and George makes no qualms about saying that. And I think it's really cool reading both of them together. I have a hardcover of The Green Inch Tower, and it's a beast, even with tissue paper, stock 7 font. I mean, it's literally like 5 books put into one. It is such a ridiculously big book. Like, they did split it eventually, and they probably should have at the beginning. Chapter Chasers Book Club, thank you for the 5 spots. Very generous of you. Said, I never caught a live stream. It's a great day when I start with the live from you, sir. I'm usually team replay. The longer the show, the better. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the 5 spot. I'm glad that you can join us here live. There's a couple of different people here for the first time, so make sure everybody welcomes them in the chat, please. David said, I don't doubt any allusion to the responsibility will rattle you, Jimmy, but I have to say that one of the big A Song of Ice and Fire fans in the space, I think, is pretty base that you advocate heavy for Tad. Oh, I see what you're saying. That I advocate for Tad. Yeah. I mean, we don't have George without it, I don't think. Or at least I think A Song of Ice and Fire would look vastly different, because there's a lot of inspiration in A Song of Ice and Fire. It's not just that. So Memory, Star, and Thorn was a delight. Tad's writing blew me away. Tad Williams is a demanding author in terms of length, but the man does reward you. I would agree. To Green Inch Tower has no business being this long and still be one of the greatest books I've ever read. Andrew's Wizardly Read said, Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn slaps. Andrew, I could not agree more, and I hope you're doing well. I've never read any Tad Williams on my TBR. Please. Bennebeck be like, Fred and Simon. That was a terrible Bennebeck impersonation. I've heard The Last King of Oxnard is quite good. I think it's fabulous. And I complained about this. I'm going to complain about it again because it's my channel. I can do whatever I want. The fact that last year, all anyone could talk about was Wind and Truth made a lot of sense because it's probably the most popular ongoing fantasy series right now. But the fact that like I only saw a handful of people maybe like getting really excited about a fourth book of a series that's been going on for 40 years from one of the genre's best really bummed me out. Like there is so much to get excited about in those sequels, and some of the stuff is really awesome. I have some criticisms of the sequel series, but as a whole, dude, it felt good. It felt like being like almost like younger again, reading epic fantasy for the first time and just being like whisked away, like completely immersed. And I think I've used the word immersion the most when talking about Tad Williams, I think. Hobo Giant said, I had no idea there'd be a live stream tonight. I'm pleasantly surprised every 2 weeks, most of the time. It's a trilogy in freedom units. I don't agree. Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is better than Last King. Yeah, Andrew, I actually see a lot of people who are longtime Oathsnarr fans feel this way. It's not like it's a clear-cut one for me, but man, it's close. And I think recency bias plays a role in that for sure. So as of right now, I do like Last King of Oathsnarr, but I dare say I think Heart of What Was Lost might be my favorite Tad book. It's really good. If there's one thing I would like to do is maybe reread Brothers of the Wind because I read it before I'd read any of the sequels. And I think rereading Brothers of the Wind now would be really, really rewarding. So I've read 0 of these series, but I've at least read First Law. That counts for 1. Tori, do work. Not sure what work, but do that. It's actually really funny. Oh, man. That's actually really funny. Tori has not read Lord of the Rings, so that is honestly really cool of you. You should just never read it. That'd be funny. That'd be good. No one has to read Lord of the Rings. Good afternoon, Kale. Good to see you. What's more long-winded, Tad Williams or the one I just left? I don't have a fart soundboard, unfortunately. I have this series on my shelf, but I need to get back in the mood for a long fantasy. Yeah, you have to be in the mood. You have to be in the mood for it. Like if you want a long-winded traditional fantasy, it's the way to go. See, Andrew, good to see you. Good luck with the editing. Editing's never fun, well, at least for me. Tigrean Tower kind of lost me towards the end, partially due to the length at that point, but damn, I love the first book, and honestly, Stone of Farewell has grown on me quite a bit. I think when you think about everything kind of coming together at the end, to me, it's pretty impressive, but I don't blame anyone that gets a little fatigued by, one of the longest books ever written. So no hate your way at all. The Witchwood Crown, still my favorite. Read Out of the Zort and Tofino, looking at the beach, though, and the vibes were immaculate. I mean, I would not blame anyone for saying the Witchwood Crown or Empire of Grass being their favorite. Like, be very, 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 very reasonable. Patrick Leo was hard talking about Last King of Oathsnarr. Yeah. Like I said, there's like 5 people talking about it. I just wish it would have been a little bit more. So, wow, this is actually kind of a sick quote. This could go on a Tad Williams cover. It said Tad Williams doesn't need a trend wave. He is the current underneath. Kind of awesome. I don't have a fart sound. I do have one of Dracula talking about Henny making him shit, but I don't think that's appropriate. All right, number 4, live ship traders. I know people were probably waiting for the Robin Hobb thing. Like I said, Oathsnarr and this, 2 of the biggest reasons why my channel grew to be what it is. A lot of the base viewers of my channel are Robin Hobb fans, I would say, or at least somewhat of a Robin Hobb fan. And live ship traders is probably this took me a while to think about, by the way. I picked the live ship traders because I really love Bingtown, and I love what ends up going on with the ships. I love the little lore reveals. I even like the little swimmer dudes that I'm blanking on the names of. Oh, somebody will tell me what they are in the chat. But, I was putting this and fits in the final trilogy. But admittedly, I really think that the final trilogy, while I love it, and Assassin's Fate won my book of the year when I read it, I do think that trilogy suffers from the same thing some of her later works do, which is a lot of signposting and repetition, which could be like an editor thing, but regardless of whose fault it is, if it's her or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's in the books. And the repetition of reminding us is a little bit cumbersome in some of those books. Live Ship Traders has one of the obstacles in it that a lot of the times us as the reader find out information in one POV, and then we get into another POV that doesn't have that information. And I've seen it drive a lot of readers crazy. Like, come on, like I already know this, let's get this. But I felt very patient when I read this trilogy, and I really, really got into it. And a lot of the character transformations, there is a character transformation between books 1 and 3 that I think is pretty amazing. And then there's also a character that I thought from scene 1 was very obvious what they were, and only to have people feel like the rug was pulled out from them in book 3, which I would just say is, you know, and me included, none of us are exempt from being caught up in a cult of personality or being fooled, which never feels good, by the way. But I think that it kind of, I almost look at it as a bit of an experiment, watching people read this and kind of seeing their reactions by the end. It's very, very interesting. There's some controversial stuff in Ship of Destiny that I will hear the argument for, and actually I feel a certain way about it, but in totality of it all, in all 3 books considered, I read this and was absolutely enamored with the family dynamics, with the ships, with the logistics of Bingtown even. It was just really cool and really opens up the realm of the Arling's lore, which ends up having some stuff come back later. Also the ships talk, which I thought would be dumb as hell. I actually really loved it. So I think that this one is probably the best out of all of her stuff when it comes to just the, probably, I think, pacing, but definitely in the plot. I was really tempted to put Farseer on here, but to pretend as if Assassin's Quest at some points didn't kind of maybe lose me a bit would be a lie, even though I really love Assassin's Quest, especially after you finish the entire Realm of the Elderlings. I think Assassin's Quest is the book that benefits the most. I love Assassin's Apprentice, and I think Royal Assassin's one of my favorite sequels of all time. Has to be up there. Like, I can think of a couple that would be in the competition, but Royal Assassin's so awesome. And the other trilogies, very much like books, entries 10 and 9 on this list, every Fitz trilogy always has a book that I don't like as much as the other 2, but I still like. Like, a lot of people hate Goldenful. Like, a lot of people hate Goldenful in the Tawny Man trilogy. I actually really love the book, but it's not as good as books 1 and 3 for me personally, even though I got a lot out of it. I enjoyed it. Obviously, I kept reading. So it's not an indictment of that book necessarily. It's just saying that when I look across her trilogies, I knew I had to put one on here for sure, just because she's one of my favorite authors, but also I had to pick the one that I felt was like maybe the most consistent out of all of them. So for me, it's Live Ship Traders, and definitely one that I would love to see an adaptation of. I don't care that much about adaptations, but I think this one would be pretty cool. If they could get the ships right. Could be hard. I am glad that people are excited. Mrs. Nuts is excited. I think this is her favorite trilogy of all time, I think. Also, chatting with Miss Nuts about this trilogy specifically was amazing. One of my favorite book memories of all time was me, Murphy, and Mrs. Nuts sitting down in the den in the library and discussing the pros and cons of this series. And Murphy had some staunch criticisms of it, and we all talked about it for like an hour, and it was just so much fun going through it, and felt really rewarding. And it's just, I don't know, something I like. Tori said, well, that's my cue to step out. Have fun, y'all. Well, dang, that's rough. I invited you to stay after you didn't read Lord of the Ring. You know what? Tori's a fake fantasy fan. No, I'm just kidding. Have a great night, Tori. But I agree with your choice of Hob trilogy. Live Ship Traders is peak, probably my favorite trilogy of all time. Wow, okay. I gave up on Farseer, but everyone tells me I love Live Ship, so I plan to at least give it a solid try. It is much different than Farseer, in my opinion. And if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Well said. 3 of 7. Best villains. Okay. Heidi said Ship of Magic is her favorite Hob. I know a couple people like that. I love that these editions are in Bones Noble now. I do as well, but apparently they're not doing Rainwild Chronicles, I think is that the one? They're like not printing them all, which is kind of weird. And that's a Jimmy. When are you bringing BellTube back? Because I keep laughing at all of his comments. I hope soon. I hope soon. Dragonhaven on top if you a real one. Amanda single-handedly made me appreciate the Rainwild Chronicles more and for how devastating the flood plot point is. That's not really spoilery. Hob just feels so grounded, similar to the Name of the Wind, Between Two Fires. It's dark, gritty, beautiful, honest. It's definitely quiet. Definitely quiet. Minor nitpick. I've wondered why Hob didn't put in more imagination to her book titles. I mean, let's not stop there. Let's continue with the character names, the trilogy names. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, I feel is a little maybe plain or phoned in. But I think her aim was to go at some, like, focus on much different things, I think. So Forest Mage when? Back me up, Mitch. I do need. Honestly, I should read Forest Mage. Who will read it with me? Maybe I'll do that early 2026. I'm booked out for the rest of the year at this point. But man, I might need to read Forest Mage. Yeah, being Hobbs' best book, that is something I see from a decent amount of people. Someone called me from out my Hobbit hole to come say hi, Jimmy. Sarah, I was reminiscing on how awesome you were and the Warlord Chronicles. And if you remember the time where Alan screamed the word whore into his microphone, I actually have a clip of it on my phone. I watch it about once a week. It's so funny. I hope you're doing well, Sarah. I hope you're doing great. Let's see. Annette said, I love Assassin's Apprentice. It took me so long to finish the trilogy. I'm so bad at finish the series. I want to skip over Live Ship. I don't know what to do. Do not skip over Live Ship. It's really good, Annette. I promise. Like, it's really. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, you're saying you want to skip Live Ship. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you hate book one, sure. But see you, Rogue. Good to see you. I don't look back fondly at Farseer Trilogy, but I have Ship of Magic. It sounds interesting. I'm giving it a chance. Yeah, if you don't like Farseer, you can definitely still try Live Ship, I think. In fact, I think that you could most likely just read Live Ship if you really wanted to. Man, Hob fans are not going to be happy with that, but yikes. You're actually re-listening to Warlord Chronicles right now? What great timing I have. Yeah, a lot of people's favorite is Live Ship Traders. So moving on, we're going to get into the top three, and this was not easy at all. As you can tell, I mean, I love Tad Williams. I love everybody on this list. But number three, and maybe this is a surprise to some people, and I have some things to say about how shocking it is to myself that this is this high. But Remembrance of Earth's Past, which is a stupid name, it should just be called the Three Body Problem Trilogy because that's what everyone knows it as. Has a Netflix adaptation from Dumb and Dumber, aka D&D, who ruined Game of Thrones. They actually did a decent job of adapting the source material, in my opinion. But anyways, the Three Body Problem, this is a massive, big brain ideas sci-fi trilogy, and one that, without a doubt, you can say the characters are nothing great. Most of them are stand-ins for philosophical ideas and very, very two-dimensional at times. And the writing is painful, at least in books 1 and 3, I think. So tell me, I'm just telling you, like, I don't think the writing's stupendous. I don't think the characters are great. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work in this trilogy, but to pretend like it wasn't just insane to read, I'd be lying. This trilogy blew my mind. I loved it for its concepts, and yes, I know how annoying it is. I am just as annoyed at all of you it's the ideas behind it all, but it's kind of about the ideas. So the thing I like about the Three Body Problem the most, other than just like the physics concepts and kind of taking it way too far, is the fact that in this series, there are things that are like chapters or brief moments of mentionings that if someone wanted to write into those scenarios and write short stories about them or full-length blown 10-book series, they could. There's so much going on. And yes, it does get a little bit Cliff Notey. That is true. You're not going to get the most intimate things for each part of this trilogy or this plot. But taking the time to read these books and then thinking about how horrific some of it is one, some of the most scared I've ever been. And two, some of the most entertained I've ever been. And I've talked about this book at length with a lot of different people. Specifically, I think it's book 2. I think they all run together in my mind. it is whenever the earth is basically going through a famine. Almost feels like the book of Revelation. It's so bad. And the way people are reacting to this, like, kind of imminent danger in this first contact, it just poses a lot of really interesting questions. And I do think, even though the characters are really nothing special, I do think like some of the more philosophical ideas that they represent are kind of cool in concept and cool to see interact with one another. But that's a hard sell for a lot of you. And I'm not trying to convince you to read this series. I don't do that. I try not to do that. But I do think Three Body Problem is pretty fantastic as far as sci-fi goes. Sci-fi, just like fantasy, is very broad. It can be a lot of different things. So if you don't like this and you're not a big sci-fi reader, don't think all sci-fi is like this. This is very specific. If you are a fan of Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood End, you should read this, because this had to be heavily inspired by Childhood End, which I read this past year thanks to BellTube, and I loved it. I think I gave it the nut button. I absolutely adored it. This series, when I think back on it, book one, I did enjoy. You have the little VR gaming thing, which was a little weird, but kind of cool. But I liked book 2 and 3 far more. The only problem with book 3 is that it goes a little too far at the end, to the point where I was like, okay, we should have wrapped this up maybe about 60 pages ago, bud. But hey, it's not perfect by any means. I'm telling you the writing's not great. I'm telling you the characters aren't really characters. That, like, it being that high, I hope that kind of puts over the fact of what I feel about this. And just an absolute mind-blowing series for me. If you hated it and you think it sucks, it's boring, it's badly written, that's valid. It's totally valid. Let me see here. So I think this one's probably going to get a couple people to react, if I had to imagine. Knew it. Okay, I didn't think that was going to be. Nav says, really? Yeah, really. I'm disappointed it's this high. Amanda said, wow, whoa, unexpectedly high, but I get it. I knew it. Top 10 trilogies would be hard for me. Most of my favorite stuff is longer and shorter than that. That's kind of what by the way, when I started making this list, I was like, I probably could have started with a better top 10 list than trilogies, because there's so many other ones that like have a bigger pool. Nav said, would this be a top 10 series? Nav, I would really have to think about it. I would say probably, but I have so many more series that would have to fit on this list. I don't think it would be this high, but I don't know. We'll find out though, because I'll eventually do a top 10 series at some point, not in the immediate future, but Jimmy, this roller coaster has no twist. I am just pleased. Let the record stand. The plaintiff is a liar, even as it was lackadaisical book taste. Got a wow. Full C signs and everything, I suppose. I only read book 1. Weak characters that made me not want to continue. Valid. Wow, wasn't expecting Three Body to be this high. One of those I haven't read yet, but I'm looking forward to it even now. I think about this series more than most others, so it had to be this way. Hey, what's up, Bart? Good to see you, my friend. Said, finally, a sci-fi series. Hey, there's a lot of sci-fi series that would have made this if they weren't 4 books long. I keep reading 4-book-long series. Hobo said, hot take, I strongly dislike the human-computer scene on Three Body Problem. Couldn't get into the dream world. It was me after me. So a lot of people love the video game stuff. Like I know Alan from Library of Alexandria, who was on episode 100, really does. To me, I could take it or leave it. It's the other stuff that I got way more into. Broken Earth is sci-fantasy. I would agree. Brent said, characters are cameras. Fake girlfriend plot was god-awful. But the other shit was absolutely mind-blowing. Honestly, for my review, see Brent's review. Yeah. Love book 1, but never continue. This might be the push I need. Oh, Amanda. You have to read Dark Forest. It doesn't get better as far as like the things that aren't good, but the things that happen, like the plot points I'm begging somebody who is an author that wants to write science fiction to write about some of the scenarios that he puts forth in book 2. The famine specifically would be some of the most horrific things ever published. I mean, it is just frightening how terrifying it is. And also, I do think that it's not totally unrealistic if a situation like that happened, how bad we would handle it as human beings, unfortunately. I've got 3-body problem to my TBR now. How's the audio? I actually think the audio is the better way to go because I do think his writing can be somewhat painful to read with your eyes. It sounds really mean, but it's true. I contend that no man born of a woman likes force mage as much as eyes. That's a long way to say that you think that you're the biggest fan. My dad's favorite books are old ass sci-fi books, and I bought him this book for his birthday, and he said it was boring. It's actually really fun. Childhood's End is good. I really like it. If I didn't love the first book, does it get better? I do think book 2 and 3 are better than book 1. I don't know the general consensus about that, though. I might be alone in that. Other people can chime in. But for me, I don't know. I think book 2 and 3 are where like a way more of the out there ideas. Like you kind of have to get some of the stuff out of the way in book 1, and then book 2 and 3 is just like mind-numbingly like crazy. Nav said, I don't think I would have the series in my top 10, maybe as an honorable mention for the concepts it explores, but the writing is too dry for my liking. The ending is too big for my liking. The end, I agree. The ending is a little too much. But God, you know, I think about it all the time. Interesting. Top 2 predictions. Prince of Nothing, The Hunger Games. I've never read The Hunger Games. Wall Facer Program is so cool. I remember reading like somebody's review and they're like, the Wall Facer Program is the dumbest thing I've ever read. And I was like, you know, they might have a point, but I still liked it. I think it was great. I surprised people hate the writing considering book 1 is translated by Ken Liu. I like Ken Liu and I still think it's rough. I think that translation is just hard. I think. I would be lying if I didn't say this trilogy absolutely blew my mind. I loved all of the science. Yeah. And I know that not all the science is accurate for all the physicists out there. It's still fun to think. Agreed. The third book dragged too much at the end. Second was the best. Yeah. And I think the third book was better than book 2 until like the final 20 pages where I was just like, okay, but to be fair, how do you end this thing? I don't know. I legit, that's the thing I was asking the whole way through book 2. I'm like, how is he going to end this trilogy? Well, he found a way, and it is creative. I'll give him that. This series wasn't for me, but I think this is actually one I don't recommend a ton. It's got to be a very personal recommendation just because it's so very niche in what it does and does well. I actually both agree with you about characters and some of the writing and how you consider it on the top. Well, I'm glad, Andre, I'm glad that I'm not alone in that. I kind of felt dumb putting it this high, but I couldn't get myself not to. Like, this is the one I kept trying to bump down to put, like, maybe Abercrombie, Hobb up there and Tad. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I think all those things are way better written. But sometimes that's the beautiful thing about, like, books and writing is that sometimes it's about more than the prose on the page. Sometimes it's even more about the plot. Sometimes it's more about the characters. Sometimes, like, there's so much you can do well in a book and do terrible in everything else. And it might resonate with a lot of people, which obviously this has. So, Jimmy, have you read Terra Ignota? No, but it is certainly at the top of my series list, TBR. I really, really, really need a mood swing to get me into wanting to read more of a sci-fi series. I think is going to be pretty challenging as well. Amanda said, okay, I will start tonight. God, if you hate it, I'll buy you a book when I see you soon. Lucas, read Dark Forest, please. Thank you. People are agreeing with me about the audio, which is cool. Foundation. Foundation was on the list, but it got bumped. It got bumped for Millennium Trilogy. The Hunger Games is actually really good. You should try it. Maybe I will. Hey, Ben said only starting now, but I can't wait to see where the Dark Souls trilogy ranks. Number 1. I don't know what happened. Number 1. 10 out of 10. Loved it. So good. Terra Ignota is the best trilogy written if you pretend books 1 and 2 weren't split. I didn't know it was split. Interesting. Is it obvious that they were split? Or are they pretty satisfying in their own right? Kind of curious. Annette said, some of my favorite books are not good, but I love them anyways. I won't be convinced that they're not my faves. I like that. And that's why I said there's absolutely nothing objective about this list in any regard. Did you ever read Fall of Hyperion? I remember watching your Hyperion review a long time ago. Curious what your opinion would be. I think Fall gets judged too harshly. I've not continued with that, and I'm not sure when I will. I almost feel like I'd have to reread Hyperion at this point, to be honest with you. Because I remember a lot of decent stuff, but not all of it for sure. Number 2, because my Indian food is going to have to be reheated at this point. That's very sad. Very, very sad. Okay, and also Amanda said that Tarek Noda's books 1 and 2 are very satisfying. That's good. Because I'll tell you what, the more is, and it's been a lot in the last 3 or 4 years, these books that are getting split, they suffer from it almost every time, and it always worries me. But it sounds like this one is all good. And to be fair, like even the ones that suffer, I usually enjoy them, but it's just like, oh, I could tell what happened here. Happens more often than I wish it did. Number 2. R. Scott Baker's The Prince of Nothing trilogy. I want to be very clear that the sequels of the Second Apocalypse, which is The Aspect Emperor, I think are head and shoulders above the first trilogy. In fact, I had to really sit down and think about this trilogy in isolation of like, how much did I really enjoy this trilogy and how much of it is that I actually love The Aspect Emperor? Because I was really positive on The Prince of Nothing, but it kind of came and went, and then I was really into it, and then once I didn't read it, I think I took almost 1.5 years to read the sequels, and immediately was like, why did I wait 1.5 years? That was really dumb of me. The Prince of Nothing, very close to the Crusades. If you're a big fan of the Crusades, you're going to love this story. And this is, what a lot of people consider to be the quintessential, like, grim, dark series. It is dark. It is depraved, and it is really hard to get through some of the scenes. Some of the stuff is pretty grotesque, I would say. However, I think the reputation that this series earns is actually more so earned in the sequels, which if you've read this and were grossed out by it, might tell you just everything you need to know about the sequels. But I think the sequels are extremely adventurous and ambitious. But the Prince of Nothing trilogy, I mean, to me, when I think about the best writing styles in the genre of fantasy, Baker's gotta be top 3. No one really writes quite like him. And to borrow a phrase I use all the time from my friend Amanda, there's a gravitas. There's a gravity to his writing that you can really feel. And as someone who grew up reading the Bible a ton, there is almost a biblical aspect to this. And then you get these like Homerific battles where they zoom out and you get the bird's eye view. That doesn't work for everybody. I like it personally. And characters that are, very much unlikable, but maybe some parts of them you can, I don't want to say relate to, but you could understand. Akamian being a middle-aged wizard that's disgruntled with his job and the hierarchy that is around it, I think is really, really, really interesting. And this first trilogy is all about doubt, whereas the sequels are all about belief. And I will let you read that to figure out exactly why that is and who that's around. But Anasarimber Kellus, however you want to say it, has to be one of the most interesting characters of all time. I think Akamian's a phenomenal character. I think Esmenet definitely, to me, gets her credit more so in the sequels. I think the sequels do a lot for this trilogy to be improved. A lot of philosophical pieces to this. Nietzschean, as some say, but there's actually a lot more than that as well. The metaphysical aspects of it are kind of mind-bending, and I think The Thousandfold Thought is one of the most confusing books that I have ever read. I want to reread that one the most, so see if I remember any more. And then, of course, you have Naor, which is one of my favorite characters, inspecting exactly what masculinity is. And in fact, I actually had a conversation today where someone was, talking about masculinity and this and that, and I actually thought of Naor because it really depends on who you ask and who you know of what does that even really mean. And I think Naor is a really good inspection of masculinity and also just being a broken human being, which is pretty tough. This series is also very renowned for its absolute horrific treatment of females, and it is tough. It's really, really hard. R. Scott Baker's intention when he wrote the series was to kind of highlight the male gaze that has been relevant in the genre for a long time, and to take it to such an uncomfortable level that maybe people who enjoy the male gaze would think twice about it. I don't think he succeeded because, unfortunately, there are people who read this and are like, "Yeah, this is sick. We need more of this," which is not a great look. I'm not debating that at all. But that intention is there, and I felt so uncomfortable through all of it, but I could never take my eyes away from the page to see exactly what was happening here. There's a lot of parallels, I think, to Jesus in some ways in the series with Kellis and all the Dune. There is inspirations from Lord of the Rings. There's inspiration from Dune, certainly. And then you mix all that with the Crusades, and it ends up being one hell of a read that will definitely probably keep you up at night and keep you thinking. The writing style is just, I think it's outrageously good. This prologue is one that lives rent-free in my brain. And not to mention, I got to tell you, it's high fantasy, which I love, because a lot of the stuff that gets considered to be, like low level and kind of gritty and dark, it's not a lot of magic going on. You got, your first law, you got your, like magic is like a flicker in the dark in a lot of the series, which that's probably what I gravitate towards the most. But R. Scott Baker is like, well, what if we did all that stuff and all of the terribleness of human beings and the way they interact with one another? But what if also we had insane sorcery that is just out of this world powerful, and different trainings of the magic and politics that run into it? It's so good. And I think you have to read the totality. I think you have to read all of it. I really do. But this first trilogy is unlike anything I had ever read, and it has stuck with me. I've talked about it a lot. It's probably one of the most discussed trilogies that I've read, and even more so probably for the sequels. I wish the sequels were, if the sequels were a trilogy, it would be number one. How about that? That should kind of give you an idea. So, not for the weak of heart. It's not for everybody. Valid criticisms of it and some of the way it's executed, but I think that this is just absolutely insane. So, and here's the thing, like, again, I would like to see series that do something a bit different, that stand out, that is so very much its own, like that's what that is, and it's recognizable. Maybe the most recognizable outside of like maybe Tolkien. Like, when you're reading a Baker book, you just know. So we will see. Prediction: Baslag, number one Prince of... Interesting. Okay. Let's fucking go, mate. Oh, it's awesome. This is not for everyone. Beware. Yes. This is no weeping on the slog. 10 peaches out of 10. Oh my God. I got triggered big time. Got a panic attack. Baker's incredibly talented, but he goes there. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Philip Chase, who I've had on the channel a lot, read through all 7 books, and I think he was disgusted and kind of hated the sequels. But even he, not really enjoying it, will tell you like what Baker's able to do with the craft of writing is kind of crazy, and really on a complete tier with like Legends, in my opinion, of course. But he would agree with me. And I'm gonna do the logical fallacy of appealing to authority, since Philip Chase has a PhD and he wears tweed. He's obviously much smarter than I am. So I own 3 of the trilogies on this list, but I haven't read them yet. Prince of Nothing, Three Body Problems, and Broken Earth. Interesting. I love the fact I haven't read half these. It gives me so much forward to look to. Reading is good. I really appreciate that, because with all the talk about how, all lists are the same and stuff, I always wonder, like, well, what's even the point? Maybe I shouldn't do it. I don't want to be annoying. But then I also remember that who cares? And and if I want to make a video to talk about some books, I think that's something that should be, 1, celebrated, and 2, it should be a lot of fun. And it has been a lot of fun. So Taylor said, as a Crusades stan, I'm sold. Taylor, I don't know if you're joking, but if you do read this, please read it while talking to me, so I can maybe assure that you get through it, because I would actually love to hear your thoughts on this. I think it'd be really interesting. Fancy Max, I love the Crusades. It was peak of humanity, in my opinion. Yeah, I guess when I said that, it was pretty obvious that no one's really a big fan of what was done in the Crusades. Well, there's somebody out there, I'm sure. I still need to get through the last 2 books. The Warrior Prophet is still my favorite, only slightly over the White Luck Warrior. I think the Warrior Prophet is my favorite of the trilogy, but I enjoyed all of them. Baker is the most underrated character writer I can think of. I agree with you, T. Baggins, and I think that the reason why he's left off the list is because a lot of people would like a lot of range. Like, oh, this guy wrote characters I love. He wrote characters I hated. I think a lot of people just don't like any of the characters in Prince of Nothing, and okay. Like, I wouldn't argue against that. I don't necessarily think I I like reading about the characters, but I don't root for many of them. I kind of root for a Colombian at times. Not that he's a good person or anything, but I also don't read. I don't read books to find role models. I don't read books to model myself after them. Most of my reading comes in the idea that I would like to extend myself to some other POV, whether it's enjoyable or not, and try to make it through in like an exercise of patience or empathy or sometimes hatred, I guess. So for me, I would put him at the top for sure. Sirius, my sweet boy. The Mother's Day brunch. Jimmy the Meat. Arby's should sponsor the Aspect Emperor. Okay. All right. Jesus, Mitch. I cannot. Another author I'm planning to read soon. I'm hoping it's not too challenging to get into. It's very dense. I'm still getting used to fantasy, and all the new world building sometimes feels overwhelming. I got to tell you, one of the biggest things I see, other than the content being very graphic, is that people really struggle with all the names. There's a lot of Z's and X's, and this is one you're going to wear out that glossary. But if you're in the mood for that, like to get lost in something, this will work. So Daniel said, I definitely like Baker, but the level of brutality is such that if anyone compares a different book to TSA, I'll probably be like, okay, I don't want to read that. Fair. Truth shines, the meat be praised. There's a head on a pole behind you. Remember when I made the Great Ordeal my book of the year? And everyone was like, well, that sucks. That's book 7 in a series no one read. I'm like, yeah, that's what you're getting over here. Evil is sexualized in all my books. I have a very grim, very pessimistic view of male sexuality. Yeah, he's digging into some deep stuff there. And not all of it I even necessarily agree with, but I'll read books about it and to kind of stretch my mind a little bit. I'm currently reading The Warrior Prophet. It's incredible. This just leapfrogged Malazan on my TBR. Okay. Hot take, but it is impossible to be objective when reviewing art. Yeah, outside of very specific things, I actually agree with you. Couldn't you buy the tweed? No, I don't have that One Piece money. Like Philip, I can't do it. The magic is so cool. I do think that is the best politicking of a fantasy, even above A Song of Ice and Fire. Okay. Sometimes I kind of wish the politics were actually a little bit more prominent, but I don't think that that's an outrageous take by any means at all. Having collaborating my own top 10 trilogies list, I've only read 7, so I have to read 3 more trilogies before I can publish my list. Yeah, I didn't read as many trilogies as I thought, but I had enough to make it at least a little bit interesting. So, okay, wanted to add it to my wish list and buy it whenever it's on sale, but for some reason it doesn't seem to be available on Kindle. The only physical I can find is of Roman Reigns on the cover. Yeah, the covers are terrible. This series has a lot of publishing issues. At one point, The Great Ordeal, my copy of The Great Ordeal was worth like $200. And then I found that out. And then the day later, I spilled coffee on it. And then I mailed it to my friend Kev. So Just Realm of the Elderling has 4 trilogies. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Number 1 Kellis fan right there. You're on a list. The Mass Effect trilogy better be number 1. Honestly, if I included video game stories, it would be top 5, probably. Hell yeah. Immersing into a POV as an exercise in understanding. Cy Kepler, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly what I'm talking about. It's Baker, the road level bleakness or the horse and berserk bleakness. What if I told you both? Which is upsetting. Very, very upsetting. I'm turning 50 soon and just diving into fantasy. That's awesome. That's awesome. There's still new things. That's the exciting things. I still find out about stuff that I would be shocking. That I would be shocked to find new stuff. And even the fantasy genre, there's always a new adventure to go on, man. HR said, I thought Black Leopard Red Wolf was worse than any of the Prince of Nothing. I think it's pretty graphic. I actually think Black Leopard Red Wolf's about on the same level as just far as being completely disturbing. So books are fiction. I'm sick of people online acting like what you read is a moral choice and the authors always agree on what's in their books. Yeah, it can be tiresome. I don't necessarily think it's off limits for discussion, but I think people who damn people just like, I mean, there's probably someone who sees this and is like, oh, that guy sucks. And I'm like, I hope not. I hope they would hear me out, but there's nothing you can do about that kind of stuff. Like people are going to think what they want and people are going to judge or whatever, but I will read anything almost anything, and at least try to see what's being done, and then judge it accordingly. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but I think when it comes to like fantasy and world building and lore and the art of writing, like Baker is among the best. It's unfortunate because, like, honestly, this is not a series that is aimed at the masses. It's really just not. So the 100 of us that have finished all of them, we get together every week and we have a little book club, and it's nice. We eat meat. It's great. Number one, if you've been watching the channel for any other length of time, I think you're probably going to know what number one is. Number one is, you guessed it, C.S. Lewis, The Chronicles of... No, I'm just kidding. Who would read that? Anyways, number one is China Miéville's The Bastlag Trilogy. And before anyone says this isn't a trilogy, yes, it is. There's 3 books. And the reason why this is separated, I said, I think Scott Lynch is going to publish a 4th book. I don't want to be on here. China Miéville is never writing in Bastlag ever again. He's releasing his magnum opus he's been working on for decades next year. It's going to be 1,200 pages. And that is arguably the most excited I've been about any release ever. So I'm pretty excited about this. Dude. China Miéville, next to none in writing ability, and his range and his weirdness and his world building. The 2 things that I have said a lot of times is when people like ad nauseum, like people will talk about Tolkien's world building. I did it earlier. We should, but people will act as if there's no other series that, really compare. Well, maybe Wheel of Time, maybe A Song of Ice and Fire. It's staring at you right here. It's a lot different. It's nothing like Tolkien, to be clear. But this is a guy who really took time to just go to the far reaches of his imagination, his mind, and craft a world that is just fascinating. Just fascinating. I think Baker, by the way, can be up there with the lore. His history stuff's crazy. And I love like history in my fantasy. I just love it. That's why I actually enjoy the Dandelion Dynasty so much. But China Miéville is who we're talking about. A good blend of how the world got to where it is, where the world probably should go, and some of the most dope magical things. I mean, we have a sword that is like cutting through reality. It's almost like the causality sword in Berserk, but it was done better here, actually. And each book being so very distinct. Perdido Street Station has one of the best... I don't want to spoil it. It has one of the best endings I've read, and just absolutely stopping me in my boots. Like just being like, oh, okay, I just got hit in the chest with an anvil. I have to rethink about how I felt about this entire book and this cast of characters. To then going to The Scar, where admittedly, where Perdido Street Station is a very odd book, not just in its world building and its plot points, and a little bit gross. New Crobazon, it's kind of disgusting. There's parts of Perdido that are awkward. And I don't mean like awkward, like what's happening. I mean, just like structurally, it's a little awkward, which is also one of its endearments. The Scar to me is just flawless. I think The Scar from beginning to end has a wonderful pace. I think it actually escalates a little bit better than Perdido does, whereas Perdido has a lot of ups and downs. And the thing that Perdido does really well is that the ending is, to me, the biggest point of the book, and really kind of, you almost like realize what he was doing the whole time. And you're like, oh, I should have been really thinking about these characters a bit more. Not totally unlike when we get surprised by revelations in life about people, I would say. But The Scar, won my book of the year, floating city that's like alive, and a huge conversation about how we use one another that I found to be one of the more compelling themes and really explorations I've ever read in any fiction, no matter what it is. I think China Miéville is one of those people who like supersedes like the genre fiction and is just a great author no matter what he does. I know he has like nonfiction stuff and he has other books that I'm hoping to get to. I really like City in the City. I know people hate the ending of it, but I love that book. But to me, when I think of China Miéville, I think of the Bastlag series because of how insane the world building is. People being remade. There's sci-fi elements to it. There's some antennas on people. There's bug people. but not in like a cheesy way. You really believe in the characters and you believe in what they're going through and what they want to accomplish and their relationships with one another. And you get a sense of like, I can smell New Krobazon. And as someone who has a stunted imagination and certainly in the visual department, this is one of the very few places that I can go to in reading and be like, yeah, I know New Krobazon. I know what that looks like. I know what the rail system looks like above it, and all of its shortcomings and all the problems with it. And book 3, probably the most challenging of them all. Also probably the least popular, but it's all about a revolution that is happening when it probably shouldn't have happened. And also there's trains. So, a good measure of me and my crowd probably are going to enjoy that for obvious reasons. But there's a little bit of everything. The books do have slight connections, but they kind of stand alone in some regards. Like, I am not a believer that you can just jump into the Scar or Iron Council, and I'll tell you why. I think there's so much lore and world building put into book 1 that having that context is one of the reasons why books 2 and 3 can be a bit of a smoother experience, because he gets to really just go with the story and add some stuff into it. Like, a lot of the groundwork's laid in book 1, but I don't know. I really think that you should start with book 1. So you have that context so that book 2, because you'll be asking like, what's a remade? What's this? What's that? You'll be fine. Read about the lovers, read about the sword. Dude, China Miéville's creativity and imagination will never be anything less than stellar to me and impressive. And I love the series. And I think out of everything on this list, I looked down and I like Prince of Nothing, hard to recommend, honestly, really hard to recommend. I would even say Hop is I recommend to a lot of people, but like I get a lot of negative feedback for that too. I would say Broken Earth, super polarizing, 3-Body Problem, got to be pretty specific who I recommend that to. I really just think the Baslag series is for more people than it would seem, and certainly for more people than it has reached. And that's not me telling you that you're absolutely going to love it, but more likely than not, I think the majority of you would like it. And if you want like great lore and world building tied up with someone who knows how to write any of it, characters, plot, dialogue, he's got it all. He does it all. He's so good. If there's one knock on him, is that his plots can be a little bit herky-jerky. There could be kind of some awkwardness, some pacing problems possibly, except in the Scar. I think the Scar's flawless. But if you can get past that little bit, there's a whole world out there. For all you fantasy nuts, there's a whole world out there that you've never dove into that is weirder than anything you've probably read. And there's enough details here to write something like a history book, like a Fire and Blood, or maybe like a summer. Like you could probably do a book just explaining the different types of like creatures and living beings on this world and how some of it works. There are some moths or butterflies in here that are horrifying, absolutely terrifying. I really, really think. Listen, if you read Perdido and hate it, that's fine. You could probably move on. If you read Perdido and you're like, that was pretty good, I don't know if I loved it, you have to read The Scar. Like and this is my bias coming out because I really just love that book so much, but you really need to. And then Iron Council is just probably a book I should have read again, like immediately to get all of it. That's where a lot more of the metaphysical stuff comes in. But I think China Miéville is one of the best authors ever. I really feel that way. I mean, I really love him. I'm going to read Embassy Town. I'm going to read Kraken. I'm going to read everything. Railsea is actually the one I probably will read next. Maybe Embassy Town. I don't know. One of the two. But him releasing his magnum opus next year is outside of probably, I mean, definitely Winds of Winter is the thing I want the most. Outside of Winds of Winter, I think that is probably the release that I would have most wanted, is to see this thing that he's been talking about, this project for a long time. And he just said he was so scared to write it. He almost felt like an anxiety about it. And for him to finally have put the last piece to it, and now it's coming out, like, I'm just so thrilled. And if he announced another Baslag, I'll happily take this out of the number 1 spot. We'll remove it from the list, and then it'll go up near the top of my series list, because I think Baslag just has so much to it to dive into. And this is also, by the way, this is a series that like I would love more people to talk about. I'm not one to complain about, oh, we're all reading the same stuff. I actually don't really care about any of that. But if anything, come on. I need more people to talk about the series with, please. Also on the list, this is probably the one I want to reread the most. It's either this or Prince of Nothing, which is probably why they're in the top 2 slots. So that's my number 1. I want to go to the chat and see what we got here. I'm so very curious. I imagine a lot of people probably guess this one though. Basslag, more like Das Drags. Am I right? Nice. Right there with you about that upcoming Mieval novel. Yeah, I'm so thrilled. Looks like I'm picking up Mieval. Oh, now see, I would get worried after I go on like those really passionate like rants. I'm always like, oh no, did I oversell it? Did I oversell it? One of the things about, I want to say this. One of the things that stands out to me about Basslag is that it does have the imagination, the creativity that I'm talking about, some wild concepts that you would probably find in a sci-fi novel or the weirdest of fantasy novels. But I also just genuinely think that Mieval does an amazing job of like giving out a theme and then kind of spiraling around it and tearing it apart from different angles and different POVs. And that's because he has so many different characters. They're kind of going through the same things. And you even have like constructs within the world, like the Remade. I mean, we could have an entire conversation about the Remade and tie it into what the meaning of artificial intelligence is going to be for us. Like that, it's just really relevant, I guess. And he just does themes so very well. And I always think of Erickson when I think of themes because I mean, he's the theme guy. I think that Mieval is able to do some of what that is, which is the kind of spiraling effect of revisiting a theme multiple times in a book without maybe even you noticing it. And then at the end, you just end up having a whole dissertation in your head about how human beings might use one another or body modifications. There's a lot of body horror in this that is very disturbing. I think these were the books where I finally realized that, like, I think I like body horror. Not like I don't want it done to me or anything, but like I like it in my books. So I hope anyone that picks it up enjoys it, though. ZK and AK says, what is Mieval's writing style in comparison to Janny Wirtz? Completely different. I don't think you can compare them at all. I don't know if you can compare Janny to anyone, and I also don't think you can compare Mieval to many people. Also, if you're a big fan of Adrian Tchaikovsky, a lot of his bug inspiration weirdness, there's no way that he wasn't a huge fan of Basslag. So if you're a big Tchaikovsky fan, I think it'd be worth at least trying Mieval. They're very different, but I'm just saying a lot of the stuff that Mieval does, ideas-wise, I think Tchaikovsky also has. So yes, please try Perdido again. If you hate it, I'm sorry, I'll send you a gift card. I've heard this is a divisive series, which makes me want to read it more. It is very divisive. Amanda, his endings don't miss. I couldn't agree more. I guess I should read something from him other than Railsea at some point. Yes, please. Perdido Street Station ending ruined me. It's one of the most like stone cold embedded endings I've ever read. Like it is in my brain and will never leave. I am sold on sword cutting through reality. It's so sick. It's so sick. Mitch, thank you for the 14 spot. Not a trilogy. 3 standalones in the same world. If Erickson got shot with a blicky after book 3, he didn't write a trilogy. Mitch, leave me alone. Thank you for the 14 spot, but leave me alone. Go cook something. Do something. Do something with yourself. Perdido Street Station is a case of there's such a thing as too many good ideas, but The Scar is so much more of a tighter novel. Yeah, agreed. Totally. Oh, this is great. Chapter Chaser said, I've been reading China Mieval and I'm completely hooked. This makes me happy. Will for Life said, well done, Jim Jam. Thank you. I like Jim Jam. I like that. Bug people are goated. That's true. You are going to love this series. The world is cool. The world has so much detail to it. It's so underrated when people talk about world building. It's one of the most underrated ones. There's wikis dedicated to it. It is incredible. Jimmy, please read Embassy Town. I will. In fact, I could make that my next one instead of Railsea. Melville is really good at exploring societal aspects of his world, which makes Basslag World stand out, in my opinion. I could not agree more. Because it does what Breaking Bad did, which is put you in the scenario and think, what would I do in that scenario? And even if it's an outlandish thing you might never find yourself in, when in the case of Basslag, even though I think you can think of parallels to our world. It's obviously going to be like a very different kind of scenario that we could ever be in since it's a secondary world. I think it still scratches that itch of putting yourself in shoes and being like, well, what would I do? And Breaking Bad, that's why Breaking Bad was so successful. One, it was relatable, unfortunately, but well, maybe not so much the meth part, maybe for some of you, but it was like, this is an interesting conflict. This is an interesting trouble to have. How would I get out of it? Would I make the same decisions as Walter White? Maybe, maybe not. I think that there's a lot of that right here in Mieville's stuff. I think that's always been the secret sauce to a lot of really successful stories. I've got a Mieville book that I've never read called The Last Days of New Paris. I've not heard great things about that one. Let me know if you like it, Daniel. Sword or Knife Cutting, as in Subtle Knife by Pullman. Nice. I have to finish the last 2 Malazan books, then maybe we'll try Perdido. I think that's a great idea, Beltube, because it is so different than Malazan. It's actually probably one of the things I would recommend after Malazan. Is the Rouse a good first Mieville? I guess no one can say since it's not out yet. I will be a guinea pig. Why not? Jump into it, dude. I am genuinely happy you are happy, Jimmy. I am at peace. Well, Beps, I'm glad that it all came back around. And that's it. I don't think many people on YouTube talk about China Mieville. No, they don't, unfortunately. Would you say the setting in Perdido Street Stage is similar to Arcane? I'm very naive when it comes to Arcane. I just watched the first episode, but somewhat. It's a disgusting city and it smells bad. That's all I know. I just got off the phone with Mieville. He said he's writing a 4th Baslag book. I humbly request you renounce this take. Jeez, oh whiz. Evie said, fine, Jimmy, I'll read it. Please do. City in the City was a great read. I'll be reading Embassy Town soon. I heard great things about it. I may have to add Baslag Trilogy to my long TBR. I would love for you to do that, and then you be the guy that makes the argument that actually Baslag is sci-fi. I think there's an argument that could be made for that. Be interesting. Josiah said, I've read 4 out of the 10 trilogies. 4 out of the 10 trilogies. My favorite is most definitely Age of Madness. 5 out of 6 are already firmly on the TBR and certain about the 3 body. Most looking forward to the Warlord Chronicles. Well, thank you very much. I'll tell you what, if you're a TV show person, you should watch the TV show 3 Body Problem. And if you like that, I would then read the books. If you're just cautious about putting things on your TBR, because I think the show's actually pretty decent, but I do think like the scientific or like the sci-fi ideas and aspects of that are better in the books. No female authors in the top 3. Jimmy hates women. How dare you, Anitha? How dare you? Okay. I read Fourth Wing. Okay. Wait. This is the shtick for Alan. We can't assign this to me. That's not fair. Chapter Chasers Book Club, thank you for the 10 spots. Very kind of you. Said, for what it's worth, these lives are great. I feel like connecting with a friend over coffee rather than just passively watching a show. Thank you for this. Well, thank you. That is all I'm trying to do. I like you all to be involved, or when it's someone on. I love having conversations. It is just as enjoyable or therapeutic to me to feel like I'm talking to people, to be honest. You could set an encyclopedias explaining the curiosities of this world, but I'm glad that there isn't. Got to keep it mysterious. Print it. Put it on a billboard. This guy gets it. Dilcor absolutely gets it. 100%. My never ending TBR since 2014. Perdido's been there. Wow. Even over Doors of Stone. Yeah. Would you consider a similar stream discussing your favorite character study books, Remains of the Day Stoner? Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Because those are characters like I wouldn't necessarily really like putting on like a favorite characters list, because I don't know. Like I would say like, I would have to think about how to phrase it. I like the idea of character study, but I wonder if there's a more interesting way of saying that, if that makes sense, to put in the title of a video. But yes, 100%. Joanna kind of did the video that I once talked about, and she gave me credit for bringing it up, of course, which was comparing Remains of the Day and Stoner. There's actually 2 books that I really want to compare, and it's kind of an idea I have for a project next year. Not a big one. It's just 2 short books, but it's one that I want, and no one's going to care about it. And I don't mean that to be self-deprecating. I legitimately mean like the people who have read both, it's probably going to be very little. But I actually think that that's and I don't mean comparing them like which one's better. I mean like they cover a lot of the same stuff, if that makes sense. So yes, this character study thing is great. I have a lot of ideas for this, the more topical chatting with nuts, if you will. This is genuinely the best booktube series on YouTube. No cap. Thank you, Jimmy, for taking all our crap. Well, thank you. It's very nice. Is it called the Ruse? The Ruse. Yeah, I believe so. I just know it's like a lady going looking for something, and there's like a big conspiracy or something like that. Annette said, I think I'm just too dumb for Mieva. I went to like him, but I remember being so confused when I read a few years ago, the like word choice, not plot, any of the source. There was definitely times where I had to look up words. I get it. Honestly, I like, if anything, I will say, you know, it's a bit of a dense read. You should make videos on the lore. I should do that. There was actually, at one point, I was scripting one out and I was going to hire an editor and do all this stuff, but I really would have preferred to like get original art made, and I just didn't have the wherewithal to make that investment at the time. Maybe I should do like the coolest worlds. That'd be a good stream. Rodrigo, what's up, dude? Said, I got Perdido Street Station for my birthday for one of my best friends this year, but I haven't got to it yet. Sounds like I should put it way up on my list. I'm begging you to. Colton says, love the Mievil love. Jimmy, I have some music recs for you. The songs are called Dragon and Flamefire by the band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. 10-minute heavy metal song tracks about a dragon apocalypse. Colton, I will listen to that tomorrow. That sounds fantastic, dude. Sounds awesome. Tyrant Philosophers was apparently heavily inspired by Bastlog. I would not be surprised if so at all. I will let other people who have read both comment, because I haven't read it. So, you know, how do you feel about China Mieville's novels with Keanu Reeves? I didn't read it. I had a bad feeling about all of it. Not that like morally bad. I just was like, I don't think I'm going to like this. And if I'm going to read something from China Mieville, I want it to kind of be wholly him and not some weird slapstick thing put together. I know very few people who have enjoyed it, by the way. What bums me out about this is that because it was a new release, it has a superstar's name attached to it with Keanu Reeves, which is great for him. Whatever. That was a lot of people's first China Mieville. And I literally saw people read it and go, this is China Mieville? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. And I know people who love China Mieville who didn't like that book. So I know it's not a fair representation of what he can do. So it kind of bums me out that I think that was a lot of people's first interaction with Mieville. But what can you do? Right? Finished Dust the Dreams, 10/9/24, haven't touched the Cripple God. That is crazy, dude. That is crazy. Jimmy read Fourth Wing. That 100% makes him a feminist. I would probably classify myself as a feminist, honestly. At least somewhat. By the way, reading Power of the Dog right now, thanks to you, bruh. It's effing amazing. I have gotten so many people, not just here, but like in my real life, to read it, and everyone reports back and is like, what is this book? Hey, big shout out to Carlos and Yolanda from StoryTube. They're the ones who got me to read it, and that's why the Patreon pick is so stinking awesome, man. And that's it every Friday when there's not a live. I get a little disappointed. I would love to do weekly, but I think I would end up breaking that schedule so often that it would become a thing. So I just try to keep it to what I can. But even when Fridays when I have a stream, I'm usually thinking about it. It's the Timothy Cavendish stream. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Probably jumping on the end here, but Perdito's coming up soon, my TBR. Rob, I love to hear that, dude. I love it. And everyone should look into the China Mieville book that is coming out next September. I'm going to be annoying as hell about that. I'm just going to let you guys know now. Popping in here late, but I'm finally going to read Mieville this month, either October, Perdido, or City. Do Perdido, please. Unless if you don't want to, then don't. Okay, can we talk about Nora and Power of the Dog and her terrible characterization? A 14-year-old just loving BJ's for love of the game, I guess. She was too cliche for a whore with a heart of gold. So Annette, I think I kind of mentioned this, like some of the sexual stuff in Power of the Dog, I was not a huge fan of. Like I said, I think Don Winslow was writing with one hand at sometimes. Like I think he was, so I think that's valid. Personally, I think that's a very valid criticism. Despite that, though, I still thought it was a phenomenal book. So say hello to heaven. See you later, chapter chasers. So with that, number one, awesome, Scotty. If you hate it, forget that I recommended it. So with that takes all my top 10 trilogies. And, after almost 6 years, my first take at a top 10 list. I hope people enjoyed this. It seems like people did, which is pretty great. I am going to do more lists, but not all the Chatting with Nuts that are topical are going to be lists. Sometimes it's going to be conversations about topics and books that I want to talk about, or maybe even highlighting some lesser known stuff, which I've really done a lot of, I think. Shout out to Julian May. But there's going to still be conversations. There's going to be some topical ones. Sometimes it's going to be about reading. Sometimes it'll just be me and you chatting back and forth. So Chatting with Nuts is, range is expanding quite a bit. But I love this format, and I love chatting with you guys a lot. There's 2 series that were not on the list, and I said that, put them on the watch list of maybe making it. I'm going to start with the first one that I think is a bit of a stretch, but it could crack the top 10 if book 2 continues to deliver and book 3 is even better. And that is shockingly The Hierarchy by James Islington. I started the stream kind of talking about The Strength of the Few and how I'm really enjoying it a lot more than book 1. I thought book 1 was fine. I thought it was just average. I did not like the Lycanius trilogy very much. But the end of book 1 was just so radical that I was like, okay, you now have my attention, Mr. Islington. And so far, I think that it is delivering. So if book 2 continues to be a banger, and then book 3 has like some crazy wrap up, The Hierarchy could jump in there, which is honestly kind of delightful because I think Islington's a guy we're going to see a lot more from, which is cool. It's fun to have an author who's active. All my favorite authors don't write, except for China Mieville. He's coming out with one. All right. Now, the other series that I've been waiting on book 3 for forever and is not in the list, which I'm starting to lose hope that book 3 is ever going to happen. But if it were to happen, I think that it would probably be top 3. It might be 2 or 1. I mean, it's top 5 out without a doubt. I think it's top 3. And that is Dark Star Trilogy by Marlon James. And out of all the things I talked about tonight, without exception, Dark Star would be the hardest to actually recommend. It is insanely dense. It is at times horrific to read. It's very disturbing, sometimes disgusting, makes very little sense, very bloated in some aspects. Kind of a mess when it comes to some of the pacing, but the unreliable narrator piece of it is just absolutely amazing. Getting all of this African mythology thrown in here and like pre-Islam Christianity influences on the African continent and like all of that stuff. It is just wild. Like electric flying vampire bats. There's stuff, shapeshifter. There's some stuff in those books that are just unbelievable. You have to read it twice to believe it's actually happening. And I do think that there might be no one as stylized as Marlon James. And as you all know, I very much enjoy, for the most part, when an author is very recognizable and really has a style to their writing and is not just kind of a run-of-the-mill. Not that there's anything wrong with that at times, but the ones that really stand out to me are the people who are doing something totally different. And Marlon James, I mean, this is a guy that won the Pulitzer Prize for Brief History of Seven Killings, which I've read the beginning 200 pages of and thought was excellent. Need to finish it. But the Dark Star Trilogy, I mean, it could be number 1, depending on how the third book goes. And that's with me, again, telling you there's a lot of problems, I think, with the books. And it's probably the least recommended at all, even more than Three Body Problem. I think it's even a harder recommend than that, to be honest with you. But I love the Dark Star Trilogy. My friend Ben and I both have complaints, but I feel like about once every 2 months we message each other like, man, where's book 3? Like those books do live rent free in my mind, and they're just absolutely fantastic. So I don't know if I recommend them, but keep that on the watch list. Dark Star Trilogy. I'm getting more and more pessimistic that the third book's ever going to come out. I don't think they sold well. I don't think many people really like those books, but I do. And I wait with bated breath for the final entry. King Killer, it was not, Amanda. I do like Name of the Wind and Wise Man's. I like King Killer Chronicle, but that is a series where I talk to you guys about how endings don't make or break a lot of things for me. I think There is a world we live in where Doors of Stone actually does more damage than not publishing it. I'm not saying that's likely. I'm not saying I think that will happen, but there's a world where that can happen. And I am really suspect of how this would work. The problem with it is that he could just do what everybody does and make it 4 or 5, 6 books, which he probably should have. But the whole story is tied into the 3. So it's like, damn, you really did yourself in. So for me, I don't know. Oh, interesting. Monica said, I didn't book 2 just come out. How come you think it won't be completed? Am I crazy? I thought that it came out like 2 or 3 years ago. So so I'll tell you what though, this is why I'm pessimistic that the 3rd book of Dark Star does not come out, because it was supposed to come out in 2024. And then I heard it was 2025. And it still ain't here. And I've heard nothing else about it at all. What's the Dark Star trilogy? I don't recognize the one. I'm really confused. It is an African fantasy written by Marlon James. And it is one of the denser things you will read. It's very hard to read. It's very challenging. It's very stylized. And it's gruesome and non-linear storytelling. It's about as hard to recommend as anything, honestly. But take a look at it. I with this book, I tell you, go read the sample on Kindle or Google Books or wherever and see if you like it. Because if you don't dig the writing style at the beginning, you could get adjusted to it, but there's a good chance you might not. Why I do this 9? Oh, Hierarchy is 4 books. Okay, well, it's never making the list then. I don't know if I'm happy it's 4 books or I'm mad that it's 4 books. I was kind of thrilled that it was going to be 3 and we're halfway, or, we're going into the last one. But I actually think with how much stuff he's setting up in book 2, he probably need, I actually think that might be a good thing. But thank you. I'm sorry. I misspoke then. So Hierarchy by Islington cannot make the list because apparently it's going to be 4 books. So I was thinking you were going to say Carcanis Trilogy. That's a good point. That one I think will definitely be finished, and I got to read it to see. I've heard everything about that series, whether it's great or bad. But I'll tell you what, No Life Forsaken has me super into Malazan right now. So, Dark Star, I'm also interested in House Dane. It's pretty funny. Jimmy's like, the answer is we all listen to different answers. Glorious. Yeah, I know. I was gonna read if you ask if you read Brief History. Definitely seems like one for you. Yeah, I started it on a whim. And I loved it. Yeah, HR gets it. Yeah, Marlon says it's coming out in 2024. Then it was 2025, and here we are. And I don't think there's a lot of buzz around it. I think there's very few of us that are excited. But thank you, Evie. Thank you very much. You should watch his interview with Victor Laval. It's good. It made me want to read them both. Yeah, he also has an interview with George or R. Martin as well. Old Railroad Martin. So, oh, it did come out 3 years ago. I feel much better. And it is relentlessly grim, for sure. For sure. Moving it up your TBR is fine. Just know if you don't like it, I'm not like, it's fine. Most 99% of people bounce off of it. So it's just really tough. I love the Dark Star trilogy. It's just so different from most fantasy, says the Gellid Prince. Yes. Again, things that do their own thing are always going to be very high on my list. So, folks, that is all of my top 10 trilogies with a couple, at least one trilogy that I'm really excited to finish. There are a few others that could be on there. Carcanis, hell, that might be on there as well. There's plenty more to read, and no shortages of trilogies. I can probably go downstairs and look about 7 that I haven't even started that I'm excited for. I mean, His Dark Materials is I really enjoyed book 1, so maybe that would make it. But let me know what I would actually be very curious, because so many people told me tonight that they didn't have any of these on there, or only very few. Leave me, it doesn't have to be your top 10. If you haven't read 10, that's fine. But leave me your top trilogies. I'm kind of curious. Maybe there's a couple that you could also make me aware of. I don't know everything. I'm not aware of everything. It's hard to know what you don't know, right? So please, if you could, leave me in the comments below, leave me your favorites. I would love to know that. Thank you, Janice said, I'm just glad to hear a recommendation on something I haven't heard before. I at least want to try it. I love these lives. So thank you guys. And thank you everyone for being so kind in the chat, and all the people. Flower Picture said, my dog needs the poop. Go take care of that. Poor pup. I'm leaving here deeply upset. Well, there's a range of reactions, which I appreciate. Folks, appreciate you being here. And if you're watching after the fact, thank you. There are timestamps below. Well, I guess if you got to this point, you already know that. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. And I think next week's my birthday. Next Friday's my birthday. And then in 2 weeks, we'll be wrapping up November. And I still have a lot to read. I've been reading a lot, but I still have a lot to read. I picked some big books this time around. So be sure to check that out. We'll, of course, be doing the Patreon pick of the month, which is always a blast. I am enjoying, by the way, the Patreon pick. That was a really unknown self-pub fantasy that has like 400 people that have read it. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm very early on, so that could change. I might come back and be like, I hated it. But so far, at least the lore is a bit interesting. It has a trope that I really love, and we'll talk about it on the live. So, guys, thank you for being here. If you're watching this now or after the fact, if you hit like, that helps me out a lot. I have no illusions that this channel is going to grow very much, but I wouldn't mind having some new people around, getting some new recommendations, new faces. It's always a cool thing to see. And YouTube doesn't know what to do with live streams. If you're on YouTube and you want to make sure your channel doesn't grow, do live streams, because that's all I do. And it's awesome, actually. I kind of love it. We have our own little group here. So hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. There's a Patreon description. It's optional, but always appreciated. Until I see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always, you know the line, keep turning the page.